My name is Marta Chavarri. I am the responsible person of global communication in Rioja.
También coordino todo el plan de enoturismo de Rioja.
I'm coordinating the ennotourism plan of Rioja.
Y bueno, pues lo primero, agradecer a Kitty y a Roberta, y sin más preámbulo vamos a ahondar en el tema.
Okay, let's start with this speaking, and I would like to thank to both of you.
Voy a hacer una introducción. Empezaremos con Kathy Hughes desde Atlanta.
Let's introduce Kathy Hughes from Atlanta.
So just a short bio to define who is Kathy and who is exactly speaking about us. So media professional with special interest in wine and hospitality, also in digital media and companies. She's currently the CEO of Fenolytics. Yeah, Katie?
Okay, es una especialista en medios audiovisuales y en este tema del enoturismo.
Big data startup. Big data is so important, at least this year, because it's been so unusual. So I'm pretty sure you're going to tell us many interesting details about how the big data impacts and the effects in the wine tourism business.
Este año ha sido muy interesante y seguro que puedes compartir muchos detalles sobre cómo la crisis actual ha impactado en el sector del enoturismo.
Yeah, so we will speak about Hungry for Wine, about a book, about the big data, about the business, about restaurant experiences, as you've got many experience in this, Katie. You came from Harvard, so I'm pretty sure you will tell us many details and figures about this very unusual year, and wine and food. That we later will go to Roberta from Bergamo. Roberta, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm very happy to be here with you. Thank you. Everything okay?
Hola Roberta, ¿cómo estás? Estoy muy contenta de estar aquí con vosotros. Muchísimas gracias por invitarme.
So we're very happy at least to see our faces. It's quite unusual this year, isn't it?
Estoy muy contenta de verles por fin, persona en persona, y es un evento muy importante este año tenerles con nosotros.
So Roberta from Bergamo, Italy, president of the Italian Association of Wine and Food and Tourism. We're going to speak about gastronomy and cultural tourism.
Roberta de Bergamo es la presidenta de bebida, comida y turismo de Bérgamo, y vamos a hablar con ella sobre la relación del turismo etnogastronómico italiano.
So perfect. After the introduction and after having these two awesome wine women here with us, we will start with Kathy Hughes from Atlanta. She's gonna tell us about wine, big data, and online events. So Kathy, good afternoon. For me, at least.
Good afternoon, Marta. It is still morning here in Atlanta, but good morning to you, and hello to Roberta. And it's a pleasure to be here and to be sharing this time with you and this information and this content.
Es un placer estar aquí con ustedes. Katy from Atlanta va a presentar temas sobre la Big Data, los grandes datos, los negocios y otras experiencias. Ella dice que es un gran placer estar aquí en la reunión y compartir todos estos asuntos con todos nosotros.
I would like to share my screen, but Roberta, it looks like I can't do that while you are sharing yours. So perfect. Thank you.
A mí también me gustaría, como Roberta, compartir mi pantalla para que todos ustedes puedan ver mi presentación. Muchísimas gracias.
Okay, we've got your presentation, Kari. I think we're fine now. So big data, wineries, 4.0 and online events. What doesn't seem to be very interesting? Tell us.
Sorry, please.
La presentación que estamos viendo va a ser sobre enoturismo digital, sobre la Big Data, las bodegas, la actualización, la modernización de las bodegas y los eventos que van a tener lugar online. Adelante.
Yeah, thank you. So Marta, thank you for the introduction, and I would like to start actually by adding one component of the biography, which is that I'm a storyteller. I am a journalist by trade. I've been writing about wine and hospitality and food and the business and the politics of wine for about 15 years now. and especially for the past 7 or 8 for Forbes, focusing on business and politics within the wine world, all over. And it has been really amazing, and I think adds some global perspective to what I bring to the table and to what I would like to say today. So as a journalist, I'd like to start with a story.
Muchísimas gracias, Marta, por la maravillosa presentación. Me gustaría añadir un dato. Soy una escritora de historias y también soy periodista y llevo escribiendo, tengo muchísimos años de experiencia, 15 escribiendo sobre los diferentes aspectos del vino y la comida y el enoturismo. Y en los 7 últimos años, 7 u 8 últimos años, me he dedicado al tema de los negocios y las políticas en todo el mundo. Es un trabajo muy interesante y me gustaría aportar una perspectiva global. Así que déjenme, por favor, empezar con una historia.
Yeah. So what I would really like to talk about today does have to do, of course, with tourism and with data, but I'd like to position it in the bigger context of COVID, of course, and the impact that a certain trend in the United States is having as a result of COVID, namely the migration away from cities like New York and San Francisco into the more rural areas of the country.
Me gustaría empezar con una historia sobre turismo, sobre los datos y Big Data y el contexto del COVID, el impacto que ha tenido en Estados Unidos y como resultado de todo ello, una migración que se ha llevado desde fuera de grandes ciudades como Nueva York y San Francisco hacia áreas más rurales.
This migration has started to be more and more documented, most recently just this week, yesterday, in an article in the Daily Mail out of the UK.
Este tema de la migración está cada vez más documentado y ha salido un artículo en el Daily Mail sobre el tema de la migración.
Whereas consumers and people are moving out of the cities like New York and San Francisco and moving into more rural areas. And the impact that this is having is that they're bringing their dollars with them and also their expectations for what a wine experience should be.
Uno de los efectos más importantes ha sido, como ya hemos nombrado, la salida de la ciudad de cada vez más personas y la búsqueda en establecerse en áreas más rurales. Esto ha conllevado que también conlleve su dinero consigo, sus dólares, y están abriendo nuevas expectativas en el sector del vino.
So let me start here. If this were in person, I would invite the audience to take some guesses at what we're looking at here. Where is this in the United States? Obviously, it's a garden and some vegetables growing. But if you were to take a guess, and we're here in this session about wine tourism, where would you guess? If you could do that translation, please.
I think we've got some technical problems on here. Traduction is not, translator is not working. Probably they'll be solving out. So if you can repeat it, I'll do it for you.
Thank you, Marta. So if we were in person, I would put this slide up and invite you to make some suggestions about where in the United States, which wine region this is showing.
Ok, bueno, nos está invitando a que pensemos en qué zona vitivinícola de Estados Unidos podríamos estar hablando, dónde podríamos estar observando esta fotografía. So tell us some more details.
Yeah, so certainly when we're talking about wine tourism in the United States, we're often talking about California, about Napa and Sonoma and Paso Robles, and also the West Coast about Oregon and Washington State, and even on the East Coast about New York State and the Finger Lakes regions.
Podríamos estar hablando de diferentes zonas, ha enumerado desde Oregón hasta Napa, hasta la zona Nueva York, la zona este. Podrían ser diferentes zonas vitivinícolas, yeah.
But actually this one that I'd like to talk about today is in Virginia, the state of Virginia, specifically Monticello, which was Thomas Jefferson, who was the 3rd president of the United States in the 1700s, his estate in rural Virginia.
Podríamos estar hablando de todas esas zonas que hemos enumerado, pero es Virginia, aunque nos suene diferente, aunque nos cueste a veces imaginarnos que podría ser, es una zona específica de Virginia.
This is the garden that I just showed is in the left-hand side of the screen, but there are two areas of vineyards that were planted in the 1700s and that they have preserved and recreated and keep for tourists and for visitors to see.
Estamos hablando de estos jardines de 1700 que están abiertos al visitante y es la misma zona en la que estábamos viendo en la anterior fotografía, que es un plano un poquito mayor, y estos jardines remontan al 1700.
This is a map of the current lands of Monticello in Virginia that visitors will get to see. And so you can see at the bottom there are the vegetable gardens and then the fruit growing with the vineyards to the north and the south of that.
Este es el mapa de estos jardines que remontan a 1700. En ellos podemos ver, bueno, pues desde un estanque hasta la zona de la terraza y, por supuesto, aquí estamos viendo la zona de los viñedos.
So a place like this, a place like, in this case, Monticello near Charlottesville, Virginia, is poised to benefit from the migration of wine consumers out of the major cities in the United States into more rural areas like this.
Seguimos hablando de estos jardines. Kerry?
I'm sorry, Marta, I didn't understand the question.
No, I was just translating.
Oh, okay. So next slide. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a perspective on who would have been walking around sort of this area at the time when it was founded in the 18th century. So in the upper left, you have Thomas Jefferson, third president of the United States. In the lower left, you have Filippo Mazzei, who is an Italian vigneron that Jefferson brought from Italy to Virginia in order to plant these first vines. And of course, there was a slave population in Virginia in the 18th century. Marta, could you please give the translation?
The translation is being done. I mean,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries about this. So the double channel is working, so people can choose between English or Spanish, and translating it's being okay. So no worries about this.
Okay.
I will summarize. We cannot listen to them because we are on the Zoom service, but no worries because the translation is being done. So I've been trying to help, but it's working okay. So no worries about this. In case we need something, I'll interrupt you and I'll tell you. But no worries, everybody, it's okay with this, and they're absolutely fine with your content.
Fantastic, thank you, Marta. You're a pro. Like, I'm so impressed that you're just navigating all of this. So thank you.
No worries, it's been okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to just give a sense of the personality and literally the people who would be walking around today. What does that look like? Who are those people today? So today, Monticello is at the heart of its own wine trail. And the marketing of it is described as the birthplace of American wine, which it is. So here is a map of the Monticello wine trail throughout this central part of the state of Virginia. And look how many wineries there are only within this one small area. But here are all of the wineries specifically within the state. These are all wineries within the state of Virginia. So Monticello is at the center, the birthplace of American wine, and it branches out. You'll also notice that this state is well positioned because to the northeast is Philadelphia, and further on is New York, and in between is Washington, D.C. So the distance from those major areas make Virginia a great destination because you can get there in just a little while, just in an hour or two, rather than having it be an entire sort of flight away to the West Coast or having to take several days out of your life and your work. This is an aerial view of Virginia wine country, which is, I think, really beautiful. So let's get into the data. Today, who visits Virginia? Who visits Monticello? And what can we know about them through their data? So as I said, these were sort of the people who would be walking around Monticello when it was first founded, but these are the people who are walking around Monticello today and the Virginia wine country. So these are Instagram posts that I simply sort of dropped into this slide. And you can see that it is very diverse in terms of ages, in terms of genders, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of race, in terms of why people come. The winemakers obviously have grown. The agriculture has grown around wine in the state, and so has tourism. There are many wineries in the state of Virginia who offer gastrotourism as a component of visiting their winery as well. So when we get into the data, and this is what Enolytics does, we look especially at tourism data as that's part of e-commerce. So naturally, during COVID, e-commerce and buying wine online has become extremely much more valuable and much more important to the industry. So we focus on that data. We're able to analyze the data so that when you have a list, for example, of wine club subscribers or visitors to your tasting room, we can help you understand them better in a bigger picture. So for example, we can analyze it and run algorithms to identify whether their gender, whether they're male or female, and how much revenue each group has generated over time for a specific winery. We can overlay US Census data into this data and weave that into it so that we can tell if the home location where the people actually live, are they middle class? Are they affluent? Are they poor? Are they highly affluent? Which obviously helps you understand a lot more about who's coming and buying your wine. And further in, we can also look at the ages. Would they be a boomer generation? Would they be a millennial? How old are they? Are they 20 to 30? Are they 50 to 60? This is one example of sort of the profile that you can start to get by using the data of who visits your room, of your tasting room. Here's a breakdown, male and female, according to decade, according to the age that they are when they register at your tasting room or for your wine club. When do they buy? This is a visualization that shows patterns of when consumers purchase from a winery. So we're starting with who are they and what can we know about them? And now we're looking at when do they buy? So the way that you read this illustration is you start at the middle and it's year by year. Every time a year turns, it's a different color. So this is in 2006 is when this winery started tracking their wine club shipments. So if you go around, you start at the middle, then you start going outward. Every year it starts to grow, and you can tell by the thickness of the line. And you can also tell that there are patterns. In November, the buying increases. In May, the buying increases. And that happens, there's a cycle to it because that is related to when the wine club shipments are sent out and purchased. So here's another piece of information that we can get from the data. We're started with who, now we're getting into when do they purchase? What times of year do they purchase? How often do they visit? When do they visit? What do they buy? What do they buy when they're here? So this is an example, and you can see at the very top, these are the different channels and the different opportunities that visitors and tourists can buy. They can buy online, they can buy through the wine club, they can buy in the tasting room. That's what POS stands for. Sometimes they buy on the website, sometimes they buy through their phones. And you can look at the breakdown of each of the wines for this particular winery, how popular, for example, a Zinfandel is being sold online relative to how popular a similar Zinfandel is being sold through the wine club. So we can start to understand more about what the consumer is buying. Here is a really clear example of what people have bought during COVID and before COVID. And I'll give you one guess as to which wines are more COVID friendly and which are not. But just having it visualized this way really helps you to understand that a little bit more. And here we're getting into the geography. Where do they live? Being able to understand sort of a nationwide or a global perspective of where your consumers live. And being able to zoom in, this is a zooming in on New York City, which is, historically one of the top, if not the top, wine market in the United States. However, as I said, that is changing as people migrate away from New York City into other parts of the country. So, for example, you can do this. You can look at state by state. You break down your consumers state by state and where they live and how they purchase. And that way, as you're communicating with them, you can do a better job of writing and telling the story to them, because you know more about who they are and where they live and how they buy. So now I'd like to look at where do they live now relative to pre-COVID times, because this is the migration that we're seeing related to coronavirus cases and deaths. This map in the Northeast corridor, of course, with New York and Boston and Philadelphia is a concentration of coronavirus cases, but they are spreading. The consumers are migrating, they're spreading outward, they're spreading into the more rural areas, which is why sort of the less popular wine tourism destinations are actually in a good position to benefit from this migration. So the ex-urbanites, what do they bring with them? They bring their lifestyle, they bring their budget, they bring what they're used to spending for wine. They're bringing that out of the city and into the rural areas, and they're also bringing their expectations. What's it like? What are they expecting from an experience of wine? And what do the wineries offer? The wineries offer that experience through tourism, of course. They offer a location. They offer not being so far away from the consumers themselves. And I really just want to underscore that they offer the experience of being able to visit easily and within just an hour or two of a drive. So just to recap the visitors, sort of who was walking around, in this case, the Virginia wine industry in the 18th century, who's walking around now and who will be walking around. This is the question. This is a question that we can use data to try to help to answer through different methods of predictive analytics, through different methods of forecasting, by using various streams of data, including the migration data that we're seeing people register as COVID continues to have its impact. So why is this important to know, especially from the tourism perspective? Naturally, you want to know who's visiting your winery now, but also those people who are visiting then make their purchases throughout the ecosystem of of commerce through the wine club, through the point of sale, through the tasting room, through e-commerce, and through marketplace distribution, and ultimately just actually getting the wine to your door. So that is sort of what I would like to present today. But I also hope very much that we'll have time later to look at some questions. In the meantime, this is my contact information. It would be a pleasure to talk with you directly about any of this information that I have discussed today. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. So everybody could have your email, katie@analytics.com. That's your mobile, your cell number. It's been so interesting. I'm pretty sure there's somebody on here that's got some questions to ask you. And if not, I've got like 3 ideas. Let me know if I'm correct, okay? It's we need to like difference between pre-COVID and after COVID. And we need to know about the further knowledge about consumption. So we do know pretty well who, where, and how. I think I like the 3 words important to summarize. So much more information to avoid to know who's coming, who's visiting, who's walking around, or who will come tomorrow. Where do they come from? Which means lots of information for us. All those questions, and how do they purchase, which means consumption and all their behavior. Yeah.
That's exactly right, and thank you, Marta. That's a fantastic recap and summary of it. And I think it's also we're really at an exciting moment for the adoption of data analysis within the wine industry. Wine isn't known for being very progressive when it comes to something like this. But if there was ever a time for the industry to embrace a skill set and to embrace a system like the analysis of data, I would say it's absolutely now, because there's so much that we can do with this really unprecedented moment in time, where we want to get a handle on this migration of consumers, the shifting demographic patterns, and what people, have historically chosen to drink, and what, looking forward, they're likely to want to have as an experience.
Right, absolutely. So no questions here. Everyone was so clear about the content. I love your definition of storyteller. So Katie from Atlanta, great storyteller about food, wine, hospitality, and big data. 4.0 about migration, cities, and how to purchase. So interesting.
Thank you, Marta.
My pleasure. And if it's fine with all of us, as we've got no questions on here, we're going to go ahead with the next great wine woman, which is here with us in Wineland this afternoon. It's Roberta Garibaldi from Bergamo. Roberta, ciao, how are you?
Hello, ciao, ciao. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
So thanks for being here with us. I just made an introduction like a while ago, but just like to summarize: Professor of Marketing and Tourism Manager, University of Bergamo, Gastronomy, Cultural, Food, Hospitality. What are you going to tell us this afternoon?
I will speak a little bit about how to enhance the customer experience with technology, and some data are from the research that every year I publish with my team. That is the report on gastronomy tourism in Italy. And I offer you some data related to some questionnaire that we collected in wineries in August and September around the world to see the impact of COVID-19 and the effect of it. And we analyze what happened to the customer experience. And so we saw that we had a decrease related to guided tours, wine tasting, special events, and the activities that are related with a lot of people, a lot of employed, because we saw a very important around 25 decrease of the number of employees in wineries this year. And instead, a lot of activities outside, but we saw too a lot, as we can see here on the right, of virtual wine tasting and virtual visit of the winery, and home deliveries, online sales, and then a great increase of the activities related with the technology. And so what the wineries are expecting to have, which kind of innovation we'll have in the future. We had a close question with this answer, and so we see that quite all the wineries are with us on some topics. For example, that in the future will be very important to offer experiences that incorporate local culture, that is important to diversify the offer of experience, and the technology is one of this way. That is important to have experience with an active participation of visitors, with a direct relationship with the clients, and the importance of sustainability, and to have online reservation system as the one that we saw. So technology is very important before, during, and after the experience of the tourist. And we check this on the Italian tourist, but they seem to be, and the enotourists especially, that are a little bit bored about the experiences in the wineries. They think that are quite similar, and they are not satisfied anymore because the experiences are too standardized. And then it's very important to create innovation. And as well, they are happy to visit places where the experience is exploited through new technologies. And you can see 52% strongly agree that this could be interesting. So how is possible, which kind of technology is possible to use? A lot by now. And so we'll see some of these examples through the presentation. But the presentation is not about the kind of technologies, but what we can obtain from technologies. And so, for example, as we saw during the COVID, with the technology, it's possible to go to have no time and space boundaries. And so, with the new technology, is possible during the lockdown to live the reality of the wineries, of the vineyards, and if it's not possible to go there, but if you go in the wineries, you can, for example, see what happened along the year in the wineries. And so, for example, this is an example of from Australia, Brancott Estate, where you can see what happened in the 12 months, because when you are in a winery, you are there for 2 hours, 3 hours of a day of the year. If you are now, you cannot see the grapes and you cannot see the production of the wine. And so it's with videos, you can live this kind of experiences. And so this is an example with virtual reality, or this is I found an example in Spain, Bodegas Torres, with videos, for example, 360 degrees. And so we saw a lot of digital tasting during the COVID. For example, in France, a lot of them use 360 videos. So it was possible to live really the experiences like to be in the vineyard. Another theme that is possible to obtain through technologies is to allow a greater customization of experience. In this case, I show you an example from California, an interactive wine tasting table. And so where you can, you put the glass on the table, on the interactive table, the table will understand which kind of wine are you tasting. And so you can start to play with the table, and so to touch it and to define what you want to discover. And so the characteristic of the wine, of the area where the wine is, the vineyard are located, and so on. And so it's a personalized tasting that you can have through technology. So technology can help to create engaging and immersive experiences, because I show you technologies, some that has a cheap price, some that is very expensive. This is the case of expensive technologies, but in restaurants, for example, now we have some very good examples in the world that are immersive restaurants. So you can go there and you can eat, but you can be in a world of music and lights and so on, and you can see something that is really related to what you are eating in that moment. And so this is something that usually happens with very good chefs, and we have examples in Balearic Island, for example, in Spain, and in Shanghai, and so on. With technology, it's possible to increase accessibility. And so we saw it in COVID-19, but we can see for disabled people, for example, that it's not possible to go to do some experiences they can live through the technologies. This is an example with virtual reality, Castello di Amorosa in Napa Valley, where you have on the website the entire reality of the castle. That is a reproduction of an ancient Italian castle. And it was done 10 years ago. They have more than 500,000 visitors every year. Another way to have a different accessibility is possible to have through, for example, Alexa or Google Home. This is the example of Apotheke. They create a testing through this option. And so you can, when you open your bottle, you can start to taste it, and asking to Amazon Alexa or the Google Assistant to help you to discover the wine. When we speak about online tasting, we saw a very huge increase of number during the lockdown, but quite all the experts think that this will be a trend that will not finish, because it was very interesting to discover this kind of experience. It will be very interesting for business to business, and it is very interesting for business to consumer too. So we have a different kind of situation where you can have just an engaging tasting experiences, and then it can be done through the social networks, where there is especially the owner of the vineyard that explain you the wine. In other cases, we can see it as an experience, so the people will pay to be part of it, and so they can buy a box with only the wine, with wine and food, or this is an example with the little bottles where you can create your own wine. And so there is the huge possibility to create different experiences that can help the people, for example, in this longer winter with the lockdown to be part to have different evenings, but it will be very interesting in the future to create some situation where you can engage the people to go in the future to the wineries. It's not something that will be substitute the visit. It's something that will engage. It will be something in the past could be to see a book or to read a magazine with a presentation of the wineries. Now we can have it digitally, and it can be the digital tastings, and they can be organized in different way. We can see here, for example, the link with the sport. In this case, it was a winery with yoga, or in this case, we have the creation of a Spotify playlist that can be offered with the wine. So you have the good music to listen when you taste that bottle of wine. And in other case, we have Netflix, and you can see the most up-to-date series of Netflix, and you can have the right wine to discover in that case. So with the technologies, it's possible to facilitate the storytelling because you can have with technologies the more interactive moment. You can choose the people that you want to speak, the owner of the wineries, for example, something else in this case is hologram, and it can facilitate the edutainment, and so you can learn more with a more effective way with the technologies. This is an example. It is a game that is possible to use in a museum of wine in Italy, where you have this on tablet, and you can you can create your own wine, and so they give you a score, and you have to do the exact number of operations, and so you in that case will have a very good wine. And so this is something nice to learn the process of wine. With technologies, it's possible to enhance interactions, and so it's possible that the people will be more part of the process. This is an example of in the Cité d'Auvergne in Bordeaux, where the people can touch and define which kind of experience they want to live. Or in this case is another example from Brancott in Australia, that they will show the use of QR code, that the use of QR code had a great increase during COVID time. And so it's a lot of years that we have QR code, but now could be the moment to use it more and more on the levels of wine, because through it we can have a lot of experiences and a lot of information related to the wine. And so you can create a storytelling when the people taste your bottle of wine. And we have a good example in the world of augmented reality applied to the labels. And so this is an example of what is possible to live. This is the example related to Jack Daniels, when you can download the app of the Jack Daniels, and when you are in a bar or in a place where you can see a bottle, you can do in this way, and you can see the site of production and the production of whiskey.
Yeah. So Roberta, we wish we could have some more time to listen to your interesting topics and examples that you bring here. So thanks so much. I'm afraid there are no questions on here. Just to summarize, I got a clear idea. The goal is clear: how to improve and customize experiences. And thanks to that technology, we can do it. Technology is a must. we should use the innovation to go for new experiences at the wineries, at the facilities. And I'm pretty sure that will be different after COVID. So technology for the future and to customize experiences. Yeah.
Great.
It's been very, very interesting. Thanks again, Katy and Roberta. We wish we have some more time, but I think that my colleagues, Carlos and the rest of the colleagues that are going to take part this afternoon here in Wineland needs to go ahead with this next topic. So thanks again, ladies, for being with us. Thanks everybody for the support. And Carlos, it's your go now.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Roberta.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
La verdad es que ha estado francamente bien, como dice Marta. El Big Data, la tecnología, las posibilidades que nos ofrecen las nuevas tecnologías y sobre todo, bueno, pues ese espíritu, que es lo que más nos ha gustado, el saber que a pesar de las circunstancias, muchísimos millones de habitantes del planeta han seguido enamorados del vino y tratando de estar cerca de ese proceso extraordinario, aunque fuera a través de una pantalla. Bueno, pues vamos a continuar y de inmediato vamos a ir con otra ponencia, otro panel que habla de una herramienta que puede resultar de gran utilidad para las empresas. Se lo contamos de inmediato en cuanto tengamos ya por ahí a Eduardo Ubide, que es CEO de IMEAnticipa y experto en este asunto. Yo no sé si está ya por ahí, Eduardo. ¿Te tenemos?
Hola, ¿qué tal estamos?
Muy buenas. Vamos a conocer una herramienta, como digo, que es especialmente útil para las empresas de este sector vitivinícolas que cada vez tenemos que apretar, ajustar un poquito más en los procesos, acertar en la toma de decisiones, especialmente a la hora de salir por ahí a buscar otros mercados, a la hora de internacionalizar. Lo he dicho sin equivocarme, ¿eh? Una palabra sencilla. Así que cuando quieras, Eduardo, es verdad lo que decía Marta, tenemos ya el tiempo justo, así que hay que ser sintéticos lo más posible, pero todo tuyo. Adelante.
Vale, perfecto. Muchísimas gracias. Bueno, voy a pasar a compartir pantalla. A ver, ahora, supongo que se verá bien la pantalla. De alguna manera efectivamente la aplicación, más que una herramienta, es un conjunto de bases de datos y sobre todo la forma de emplearlo. Lo que nos permite de una manera clara y directa es conocer qué está ocurriendo en el mercado y sobre todo yo creo que hay un aspecto muy importante, es dónde debemos y dónde no debemos estar. El mercado del vino, igual que todos los mercados que en este momento nos estamos encontrando, pues tiene retos muy importantes. Quizás el más importante es encontrar clientes y sobre todo ver qué clientes o qué países están evolucionando. Por la brevedad del tiempo no puedo explayarme demasiado en lo que sería el estar exponiendo en profundidad esta y otras muchas herramientas que hay. Por lo tanto, me he centrado en utilizar básicamente dos, que beben de dos fuentes distintas. Una bebe de las fuentes de estadística de la Organización Internacional de Comercio, que nos disponen unas herramientas de acceso libre para cualquier persona y que le permite hacer un análisis de tendencias y de mercados de destino. Y por otro lado, de una herramienta que se basa exclusivamente en lo que serían los datos que se recogen las aduanas del mundo, que nosotros a través de nuestros sistemas recogemos, recopilamos, ordenamos y utilizamos. Entonces, sin más dilación, vamos allá. En este momento, tal como podemos ver, bueno, hay dos factores que están influyendo bastante en el sector del vino. Por un lado es la distancia a destino. Si nos damos cuenta en el primer mapa, nos aparecería la distancia que hay de los diferentes países. Es decir, esto es un mapa que se compone, por un lado, por el nivel de concentración de exportadores y, por otro lado, de la distancia en kilómetros que hay desde el proveedor, es decir, desde el exportador al país de destino. Nos damos cuenta que, aparte de la tradición, hay otros factores, como la distancia, que influyen de una manera clara en el vino. Es decir, es más normal vender en mercados próximos que vender en mercados que están a cierta distancia. ¿De acuerdo? Por otro lado, veríamos que el mismo fenómeno nos aparece en los países compradores respecto a los que serían sus proveedores, donde efectivamente las distancias, si vemos, son inferiores. Sí que se acercan bastante. La zona de influencia de Australia estaría muy orientada a la zona del Pacífico, mientras que la zona de influencia de Europa estaría muy próxima a lo que sería el Reino Unido, etc. Esto lo vemos de una manera mucho más clara si combinamos lo que podrían ser los países exportadores respecto a los países importadores. De todos es sabido quizás que los países que más influencia o mayor importancia tienen desde el punto de vista de la exportación de vino son Italia y Francia, que ocupan el primer lugar. En segundo lugar, como podemos ver, por la importancia respecto al valor exportado en miles de dólares USA, estaría España y Australia, y en tercer lugar estarían Estados Unidos y Argentina y Alemania. Bien, ¿qué nos puede indicar esto? Bueno, pues nos indica que al final tenemos que ver una serie de tendencias que aquí me he centrado en las tendencias que podía haber por parte de España respecto al mundo, y vemos que, desgraciadamente, y espero que no cambie el tema respecto al Brexit, vamos a tener o tenemos en el Reino Unido por parte de España el mayor comprador. Pero no solamente es que tengamos el mayor comprador, sino que si vemos aquí el recorrido que hay del momento actual hasta lo que podría llegar a tener como mercado potencial, todavía hay un tramo bastante importante. Si nos damos cuenta, mucho más importante lo que puede ser Alemania, muy parecido a lo que puede recorrer Holanda, a lo que puede recorrer China, y sin embargo Estados Unidos se ve que se podría comportar negativamente respecto a lo que podrían ser las compras. En el caso de Francia es y puede ser un buen comprador todavía de España, Dinamarca, etcétera. Es decir, esto nos va dando un poco pistas de cuáles pueden ser las oportunidades, es decir, dónde focalizarnos en los mercados internacionales y sobre todo conocer, independientemente del nivel de competencia que tengan, conocer en qué países podemos tener un mayor desarrollo. En el gráfico de la izquierda, y lo explico porque vamos a ver varios comparados España con diferentes áreas geográficas, donde aparece una línea más gruesa es donde más fácil es hacer negocios, es decir, combinaría, por así decirlo, el tamaño del mercado, el interés del mercado, con la facilidad para que nosotros nos acerquemos a ese mercado, es decir, resolvamos las potenciales barreras que pueden llegar a aparecer. En el siguiente gráfico vemos las oportunidades específicas de España respecto a Europa, donde nuevamente, como es lógico, el Reino Unido ocupa quizás la posición más importante. Alemania sigue ocupando un segundo lugar, ya no solamente es la distancia o el potencial de crecimiento que tiene, sino lo que sería el tamaño de mercado que en este momento tiene. Es decir, aquí nos alcanzaría, o podríamos decir que el Reino Unido podría llegar a tener un tamaño potencial del mercado superior o bastante superior a los 500 millones de euros. En el caso de Francia, pues como estábamos diciendo, tiene un comportamiento interesante, es decir, veríamos un poco las posibles tendencias dentro de la propia Europa, así como el tamaño proporcional respecto a lo que sería el vino español respecto a estos mercados. Por ir de alguna manera un poco más rápida, porque quiero centrarme sobre todo en lo que sería la última parte, lo mismo tendríamos respecto a la posición de España respecto al norte de Europa. Estados Unidos, curiosamente, es un mercado que probablemente pierda interés o pierda entidad respecto a lo que podría ser el volumen de mercado. Es decir, se estima que puede operar en negativo. ¿Por qué? Porque la oferta que se está dirigiendo hacia Estados Unidos es muy superior a la demanda relativa que hay en ese mercado. Lo mismo ocurriría en el caso de México. Sin embargo, Canadá debe o puede, parece que tiene una posibilidad de crecimiento importante. Si nos vamos hacia lo que podrían ser Sudamérica, veríamos que Brasil quizás, con diferencia, es el que tiene una posición más dominante. El resto de los países tienen posición de interés, pero si nos damos cuenta, el potencial de crecimiento de esos países a corto plazo no se prevé que puedan ser muy interesantes. Eso no significa que no sean mercados de interés, sino simplemente que su potencial de crecimiento respecto a lo que sería el vino en el país, pues quizás se comporte de una manera, de un crecimiento menos rápido a lo previsto. En relación al caso de las oportunidades de España respecto a Asia, vemos que efectivamente China, sin lugar a dudas, ocupa la posición dominante con tamaños de mercado o potenciales de mercado muy altos, próximos a los 500 millones de dólares. En el caso de Japón, el crecimiento también es interesante. En el caso de Hong Kong también, Es decir, ¿qué nos aporta esta herramienta? Nos aporta esta herramienta, por un lado, respecto al producto que estamos haciendo y al mercado, nos está indicando claramente por dónde puede ir la situación, es decir, cuál es su capacidad de compra en el momento actual y cuál es el recorrido que podemos llegar a tener en ese mercado respecto a un código arancelario concreto. He elegido el código arancelario, el 220421, que quizás un poco es el más significativo en el caso del vino. En el caso de África sorprende la posición de Marruecos, que se presume un altísimo crecimiento. ¿De acuerdo? Sin embargo, si nos vamos a lo que serían las cantidades que están consumiendo en este momento, y lo veríamos en la parte inferior de la tabla, vemos que, bueno, que la actualidad del consumo no es muy importante. Y la expectativa de crecimiento estaría rondando pues, los 10 millones de dólares aproximadamente. Finalmente, en relación a España y el área del Pacífico, de una manera clara, el más interesante comprador sería Australia, mientras que Nueva Zelanda, pues bueno, puede o parece ser que está en este momento con mayor capacidad de compra de la que realmente o se le está generando una oferta superior a la capacidad de compra que tiene. Bien, si estos elementos los llevásemos después a un mercado concreto, y aquí tenemos que ser un poco más finos desde el punto de vista, ya no solamente el mercado, desde el punto de vista global y las estadísticas que nos aportan su comportamiento, deberíamos de entrar ya en detalles que nos van a permitir conocer ya no solamente la compra global del mercado, sino dentro de ese mercado quiénes están comprando. Es decir, quiénes están comprando, a qué precio, de qué país del mundo viene o de qué empresa del mundo está viniendo el producto que compran. En este caso, lo que hemos hecho ha sido cerrar o centrarnos en el mercado mexicano para conocer exactamente quién está comprando en el mercado mexicano, quién le está vendiendo a los clientes mexicanos y en qué cantidades. Bien, esta es una herramienta que la hemos desarrollado, es decir, es un Power BI, que lo que hace es recoger lo que serían los diferentes aspectos que estamos comentando. Si me permiten, voy a salir de la presentación y voy a ir directamente al... Bien. Bien, ¿qué nos aporta esta información? Bueno, insisto, está pensada focalizándonos en un mercado de destino. Es decir, en este caso sería México el país que estamos observando de una manera detallada. Estos datos provienen directamente de la información que se recoge en aduanas y por lo tanto nos permite ver bueno, pues, lo que pueden ser los diferentes importadores. En este caso, si clicáramos en Digrans S.A., nos diría a quién le está comprando, ¿de acuerdo? Y está fundamentalmente comprando a Chile, a Viña Concha y Toro, a Trivento, Bodegas y Viñedos S.A., a los Fetcher Vineyards y a la Sociedad Exportadora y Comercial Vía Maipó, que también, por lo tanto, es chilena, en Chile. ¿Qué cantidad les está comprando? Bueno, pues aquí tenemos el detalle de lo que le está comprando a Viña y Toro durante un periodo determinado de tiempo, que son concretamente 3 meses lo que estamos contemplando. ¿De acuerdo? Si nosotros nos vamos a otro importador, nos cambia bastante el panorama. Vemos que fundamentalmente el que le está vendiendo es España y estos serían los exportadores que le están vendiendo a importaciones Colombres. ¿De acuerdo? Si clicásemos el exportador, veríamos a su vez, bueno, que en este caso obviamente queda circunscrito a lo que serían importaciones Colombres y las cantidades y el valor que están comprando. Por lo tanto, podríamos perfectamente hacer una evaluación de lo que podrían ser los precios que estarían pagando aproximadamente por cada envío que se está haciendo. ¿Qué más información nos aporta esta consolidación de datos? Pues tendríamos una segunda posibilidad, que sería conocer el origen de la mercancía. Es decir, siempre, no nos olvidemos, estamos centrándonos en lo que sería México, y aquí estarían todos los países de origen que están participando en el conjunto de las operaciones. Si nos vamos a Chile, veríamos que desde Chile va hacia México, estarían importándole de Chile estas bodegas, Anfitrión de México, bodegas, antiguas bodegas de Perote, Vas Mexicana, Básicos Gourmet, etcétera, etcétera. Es decir, por lo tanto, y nos permite también por las cantidades saber si son grandes envíos y al final del periodo cuánto pueden suponer. ¿De acuerdo? Aquí vemos perfectamente nuestros importadores Colombres que vemos que ocupa una posición muy relevante respecto a lo que sería el conjunto de las operaciones. Si por el contrario, en lugar de Chile fuéramos a España, veríamos que, pues que obviamente aparecen unos importadores, se repetirán, pero sí que podemos ver claramente quiénes son los exportadores que están acudiendo a este tipo de información, o sea, este tipo de operaciones, ¿de acuerdo? Bien, finalmente tendríamos una tercera pantalla, por así decirlo, la que nos daría unos valores totales que nos permitiría, por un lado, conocer el valor total del exportador por país, nos permitiría conocer siempre quién es el importador y, por lo tanto, los datos que estarían relacionados con el mismo. Es decir, vemos claramente que en el caso de Digrans, de la Viña Concha y Toro, es el que tiene mayor volumen de operaciones con él. Y de los países que está comprando, pues Chile obviamente es el más importante, Argentina ocuparía un segundo lugar, Estados Unidos un tercer lugar y el propio México estaría ocupando un lugar pequeño. Si le diéramos a importaciones Colombres, pues veríamos que tiene mucho más repartida la cartera. ¿En qué sentido nos permite ayudarnos esto? Pues nos permite en varias cosas. Por un lado, a la hora de poder hacer un seguimiento respecto a las operaciones que están haciendo nuestros competidores, pero también nos permite conocer a qué precio están comprando y, por lo tanto, nos permite sentarnos en un momento determinado a discutir los precios de una determinada operación.
Eduardo,
Sí.
porque están llegando preguntas de espectadores que dicen, ¿cuáles son esas herramientas? Vamos a explicárselas, vamos a por lo menos nombrarlas para aquellos que están siguiéndote con mucha atención, tengan esa referencia y sepan claramente que esto se puede utilizar. ¿Cuáles son?
Bueno, esta es una herramienta que esta concretamente que estamos viendo es un Power BI que nosotros lo cargamos partiendo de unos datos que recogemos de las diferentes aduanas del mundo. ¿De acuerdo? Es decir, igual que si nosotros estamos viendo en este momento pues el caso del vino, nosotros somos capaces de recoger de cualquier producto que se mueva por cualquier parte del mundo. Lo que hacemos es consolidarlo en una base de datos y esa base de datos lo que hacemos es volcarla de manera visual a través de lo que podría ser un Power BI. Por lo tanto, en ocasiones, cuando hablamos de herramientas, pues nos imaginamos algo físico o una plataforma. No es preciso. Es decir, esto se ha combinado para dar respuesta a nuestros clientes que al final lo que necesitan es información, sobre todo información de una manera visual. Respecto a la otra que estábamos viendo anteriormente, es una herramienta que está embebida en lo que es la Organización Internacional de Comercio. Concretamente, se llama Trade Map. Trade Map, cualquiera que teclee en Google, le lleva directamente a lo que sería la Organización Internacional de Comercio y le da una suerte de herramientas que te permiten analizar el comercio internacional. Es decir, si bien esta herramienta, esta sí que tiene un coste, la otra es absolutamente gratuita. ¿De acuerdo? Ya tiene un coste porque hay que comprar bases de datos, etcétera, etcétera. No sé si he respondido a la pregunta que me hacían.
Perfectamente. Están ahí los espectadores, algunos de bodegas extraordinarias también de Rioja, muy pendientes
Sí.
de tu exposición, así
Pues
que sigue.
me encanta. Bien, voy a dejar de compartir para que veamos finalmente el último elemento que nos permitiría, y con esto, bueno, pues daría un poco por terminada la presentación. Un momentito, por favor. Aquí, volveríamos otra vez al principio. Bien, el último elemento que nos permitiría profundizar mucho más es lo que nosotros llamamos la hoja de vida del importador. Es decir, en este caso, a diferencia de lo anterior, nos estamos centrando exclusivamente en un importador. En este caso es Colombres. Colombres es posiblemente el que más caracteriza lo que sería un importador diverso, porque está importando no solamente vinos, no está especializado, está importando esto, ¿cómo se llama? Conservas, está importando una serie de productos, bacalao, entonces está muy centralizado, muy centrado en lo que pueden ser el productos gourmet allá en México. Bien, por lo tanto, si nos fuéramos concretamente a abrir la aplicación específica para conocer la hoja de vida de Colombres, lo que hacemos es reducir a un solo importador. Lo que reducimos es a un solo importador. No, un momento, que me parece que aquí ha habido un segundo. Permítanme, por favor. A ver. Un segundo. Ahora, no sé si se ve bien. Ahora. Supongo que lo verán bien ahora, ¿no?
Ahí está.
Perfecto. Muchísimas gracias y perdón. Bien, en este caso nos estamos centrando únicamente en importaciones Colombres. Es decir, sería un distribuidor en exclusiva. Si nos damos cuenta, los productos cambian. Es decir, aquí tenemos desde maquinaria de pastelería hasta, bueno, pues diferentes cosas. Si nos centramos exclusivamente en lo que podría ser el vino, vemos que ocupa una parte muy importante de sus productos. ¿De acuerdo? Sí, pero vemos que aquí también tiene preparaciones vegetales, crustáceos, pescado, etc. Pero en su conjunto veríamos por nombre de exportador, es decir, nos permitiría conocer a quién está importando y a qué precio, con lo cual, en un momento determinado, si nos tenemos que sentar a discutir los precios respecto a lo que podría ser una determinada denominación de origen, bueno, pues vemos que el valor FOB y el peso nos da perfectamente la posibilidad de saber más o menos, con la información que tenemos nosotros como bodegueros, saber más o menos cómo puede estar funcionando el precio aproximado. Si nos centramos únicamente en España, bueno, vemos que, aparte del vino, está importando otra serie de productos. Es decir, esto, igual que nos aparece de una manera, bueno, pues con varios productos, porque lo tenía estas demostraciones para otros temas, aparte para el vino, pero sí que nos da el detalle de todos los productos que está trayendo. Si nos centramos únicamente en el vino, pues bueno, veríamos que efectivamente está trayendo está aportando, por así decirlo, lo que serían pues diferentes ámbitos pues, de interés. Espero no ofender a nadie, vamos a meternos un segundo en lo que sería CUNE, y vemos que CUNE en este periodo no es de ahora, este es del año 2018, creo. Bueno, pues aquí nos da un poco el importe, valor FOB y los pesos que han supuesto a estos dos códigos HS. ¿De acuerdo? Es decir, Dicho esto, bueno, pues yo creo que nos permite de una manera clara pues conocer qué está ocurriendo en el mercado. Vamos a ver un momentito. Ya está. Vale. No sé si alguien querrá hacer alguna pregunta respecto a lo que hemos estado viendo. Esto será un poco lo que hemos visto. Y bueno, espero haber sido breve y sobre todo haber podido transmitir, sobre todo, más que el detalle, la importancia de la utilización de herramientas de inteligencia de mercado, bueno, para poder resolver quizás dudas o tener información para tomar decisiones.
Francamente bien, Eduardo. Además, se ha entendido a la perfección y de las pocas ocasiones en las que cuando un ponente se le requiere que sea conciso y sintético, ha cumplido. Fabuloso. Una última consideración, una pregunta que sí que te queremos formular y es,
Sí.
tú que tienes una visión panorámica de los mercados internacionales, de esa aventura precisamente de internacionalizar, ¿qué país, qué mercado habría que mirar con un poquito de atención durante estas próximas fechas a corto y medio plazo para una bodega, para algún vitivinícola, para alguien exportador que quiera empezar por ahí a abrir mercado? ¿Qué país tendrías tú subrayado en el mapa, en el Atlas en este caso?
Sí, si habéis visto, cuando hemos arrancado un poco los mercados su potencial, hay mercados muy interesantes en el sudeste asiático. No estoy hablando de China. China es un mercado muy complejo y cualquiera que esté trabajando ahí se da cuenta. Pero hay pequeños mercados, quizás no con gran capacidad de consumo, y que sin embargo podrían ser muy interesantes. Singapur, es decir, países incluso, aunque sean musulmanes, daros cuenta que hay una gran cantidad de turistas que están visitándolos y obviamente son como un elemento aparte. Esa sería un planteamiento. Otra zona muy interesante, yo creo que nos da miedo acercarnos por lo lejos que está, es Australia. Australia tiene un potencial de crecimiento muy interesante. Igual que a nosotros nos atraen los vinos del Nuevo Mundo, a ellos los atraen los vinos del Viejo Mundo. Y bueno, yo creo que todavía Sudamérica tiene que crecer. Está todavía en una cultura muy de cerveza y que probablemente en los próximos años empiece a despertar de una manera clara y directa para el vino. Tiene un gran potencial de crecimiento.
Eduardo, lo apuntamos. Gracias de verdad por participar con nosotros en el foro en esta primera jornada. Un saludo y ya sabes que también aquí en La Rioja tienes tu casa. Hasta la próxima.
Ya lo sé. Muchísimas gracias y suerte. Hasta luego.
Despedimos a Eduardo Ubider, recordamos CEO de Y Me Anticipa, experto en internacionalización, que nos ha mostrado lo importantes que son las herramientas también de control, de visualización de todos esos mercados para controlar las mercancías y ver dónde puede haber exactamente oportunidades precisamente de negocio. Y es el momento ahora de mostrar cómo están trabajando las bodegas en materia de sostenibilidad, un argumento que está permanentemente en la actualidad no solo de nuestro país, en el ámbito internacional se habla prácticamente a diario de estos asuntos de sostenibilidad, de respeto a nuestro entorno, de hacer procesos lo más respetuosos con nuestros ecosistemas. Así que de esto hablamos ahora con una mujer que es Raquel Zaldívar. Raquel, ya te tenemos por ahí, ella es Global Brand Manager Wines en Zamora Company. Y Raquel, gracias por acompañarnos. Presentas tú a quienes nos acompañan, pero insisto, y a ellos dos también se lo decimos, vamos ya con el tiempo justo. Nos van a echar. No, hay que ser respetuosos también con los tiempos y con la hora marcada. Así que todo vuestro, adelante.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are today all aware about how climate change is changing our lives, and also we are very concerned of how it's going to change the life of our children. Which kind of planet we are going to leave behind us, which kind of legacy, no? And this is something that is very tangible in the wine industry, the industry that we belong. Because it depends a lot of the weather, and every day more and more we are experiencing very dramatic episodes of weather change, like the increase of temperatures or the droughts that in summer, that is making the vines in stress and forcing us to use a lot of water resources, for example. But not also that, the horrible episodes that we have lived in California or in Australia last years with the fires or the hail. This is something that is affecting a lot the grapes, our quality, the wines of the quality of our wines, and affecting the pH, the alcohol, and the acidities. No, it's something that climate change is not something that we are talking about the future, how it's going to affect. It's something that is happening right now, and is very urgent. No, and it needs the collaboration and that we are all conscious about that. No, this is something that they know a lot. The people that we have today, the Julien Gevreux, that is Vice President of Sustainability at Jackson Family. Welcome. We have the honor to have him today. And also we have the honor of having Josep Ribas, Director of Sustainability at Torres Family. Both of them, they are leading a very inspiring project, very brave. This is the International Wineries for Climate Action. I think of all of us, we have the respect of this project, and I give you the word to explain us in which consists and what are the challenges that you are facing right now.
Okay, so thank you very much, Raquel, and for this introduction, and also for supporting International Wineries for Climate Action. Thank you very much to Wineland for giving us the opportunity to share with you the initiative of IWCA. And well, we have a short presentation for you to be aware of IWCA. We're gonna take turns with Julian to make this presentation. He's gonna show the presentation, and we're gonna go through the different slides. First of all, just to tell you how it all started, no? How Spanish winery like Familia Torres came up with the idea of creating this initiative with Jackson Family Wines, a Californian winery. And well, it all began thanks to Mr. Torres' niece, Cristina Torres, who was actually working at Jackson Family Wines that time. And she realized that we had many points in common, and that, well, we could maybe get in touch and do something. So after several months of talking and so on, we came up with the idea of creating a kind of club. I don't know if you can see the presentation. Julian, did you manage to? Because I don't see it. Yeah? Okay. Well, I'm gonna keep on. And well, we have on the side of Jackson Family, there is Katie Jackson from the family Jackson. She is the Senior Vice President of Social Responsibility. And together with Mr. Torres, fourth generation of Familia Torres, we, in 2019, started this initiative called IWCA that, well, is intended to galvanize action towards emissions reduction, greenhouse gas emission reduction. And by doing so, we want to decarbonize the entire wine sector as fast as we can. If you can go on the next slide, Julian, please. So as I was saying, we want to promote these greenhouse gas emission reductions and to adopt best practices. And this by setting high standards and to make this IWCA, this group, very, very, very strict, very professional, very highly committed. So all the wineries that take part in this group, they are really serious about it, and they look to reach these targets that we have set, reducing by 50% the emissions by 2030 and becoming climate positive by mid-century. The goal of IWCA is, on one hand, is to correctly measure the greenhouse gas emissions, which means scopes 1, 2, and 3, and to effectively reduce these emissions. So IWCA is not just a kind of certification or group with requirements, it is also a working group. And despite the situation of the pandemic situation this year, we can say that 2020 has been very positive for IWCA. And as you will see on the next slide, we have numerous wineries having joined the initiative. Apart from the 2 founding members, Torres and Jackson, there are other 6 that join us this year. And I would like to point out the fact that they come from different parts of the world. So this initiative, IWCA, is international based. So we believe that it makes sense that given the fact that climate change is a global threat, we need to join forces and to act collaboratively all over the world. It's possible. And we approve of that is this same conference that is being shown all over the world. We can work very easily remotely, and we believe this is possible. So we have wineries like Symington from Portugal, VSPT from Chile. We have 2 American ones, Spotswood and Silver Oak, apart from Jackson, and also our friends from New Zealand in Yealands. And well, we have not published it yet. This is kind of breaking news, but we are also showing you Cullen Wines from Australia and Emina Rivera from Taromera Group, that they recently joined the group as well. So now we are 10 wineries within IWCA working together. 2 of them full standing members, and the other 8, they are applicants. I'm going to talk about this applicant status later on. So just for you to know a bit at a glance what IWCA is, what IWCA means right now, we are 10 members from 6 different countries, 4 continents represented, and all together, we represent more than 28 million cases of wine production. Also, altogether, we have accomplished more than 55,000 tons of GHG emission reduction, which is a lot. And well, we started this year, we launched in 2020, but we have had great impact in the media, and we hope we will get more and more visibility in order to grow our group and have a greater number of members in it. So these are some of the examples where we have been published, and well, magazines that have talked about us, and journalists and newspapers. So we were saying that this is an initiative that sets some requirements in order to be part of it. And these main requirements are 4. I want to point out that these are very strict requirements, that they rely on international standards like ISO 14064, and that they are science-based. So to start with, one of the 4 requirements is to have at least 20% of on-site renewable energy consumption. The second requirement is to have a GHG inventory, greenhouse gas emissions inventory, that takes into account scopes 1, 2, and 3, which basically means that we take into account from the vineyard until the disposal of the wine bottle, and passing through all the different steps and activities within the manufacturing of these wine bottles. And this is based on the ISO 14064. We rely on this standard. IWCA is not a judge. We just ask for this standard and to have the emissions from the entire scopes. The third requirement is to have demonstrated at least 25% reduction of these emissions of the winery as a proof of this commitment. And we also set targets for mid and long-term scenarios. This 50% target for 2030, and for mid-century, the climate positiveness. Before that, we were talking about the applicant status. All these requirements are needed to be fulfilled in order to become full standing members. But as we said, there are also applicants within IWCA. Applicants need to have requirements number 2 and 4 fulfilled, at least, within the 6 first months. So basically, we ask any winery to have a greenhouse gas inventory. We tell them, okay, you need to include all the impacts that your winery is responsible of, scopes 1, 2, and 3. And to audit these numbers, you need the ISO 14064. But also you need to commit with these long-term targets, 50% by 2030 and climate positive. And then we give you 5 years more in order to reach the other 2 requirements that are a bit more difficult to come up with, like especially the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. But just by being applicants, you are already taking part of IWCA, you are already sharing the knowledge between the different members, participating on the different meetings, and this is very positive for everyone. So this for the applicants, and these are the targets and the objectives. And just for you to know that at least in Europe, these targets, science-based targets, they all look at the same objectives, reducing at least by 50% the emissions by 2030, and to become carbon neutral in 2050. We talk about climate positive because we believe that as working at the vineyard, we are going to be able to absorb more CO2 than the one we emit. And I'm gonna let Julian continue from that point, and he's gonna talk about the GHG inventory.
Excellent, thank you, Josep. It's good to be here with you all. Can everybody hear me and see me okay? I can only see my screen because I'm sharing, so I can't see if you can see me, but if my head's cut off, Josep, just let me know, otherwise I'll keep talking. So as Josep was mentioning, the importance of measuring and assessing your entire company footprint is really critical to what we're doing for IWCA. There are different emissions scopes qualified through scopes 1 through 3. And scopes 1 and 2 are really known as your direct emissions. So those are the emissions that the organization itself creates through its own activities, like burning diesel fuel in the vineyard or consuming electricity on site. And then there are also emissions that are generated from your indirect sources, your supply chain emission sources, or they're also known as scope 3 emissions. And those are emissions, if you think about it, that the organization itself doesn't create, but we create the demand for those emissions. And so that's things like the glass bottles that we purchase or our shipping footprint, because even though we are not consuming the natural gas to make the glass, for example, or the petrol or the fuel to power the trucks or the ships to deliver our case goods, we're creating the demand for those emissions. And generally speaking, scope 3 emissions represent the lion's share, the vast majority of a company's emissions. And in a lot of cases, those just don't get accounted for because companies consider them not controllable. And we think that it's important to really encompass and account for your entire emissions supply chain, which is why we've really focused on that, and that aligns with the best practices with ISO. And so what we've done, as Josep was speaking to earlier, is we've created a guidance document for all IWCA members and applicants to follow for essentially standardizing their greenhouse gas emissions inventories. And this document is based on the World Resources Institute's GHG protocol, it's essentially the gold standard in carbon accounting for scopes 1 through 3. So rather than reinvent the wheel, we've taken that protocol as a baseline and ultimately applied it to the wine industry. So as you can see here, we have our scopes 1, 2, and 3 emissions detailed. And if you're going to do a greenhouse gas emissions inventory, you need to include all of these criteria and all of these categories within your inventory to make it comprehensive. The other key is that it must follow this ISO 14064 process so that essentially all greenhouse gas emissions inventories will look the same. They'll follow the same standard from a appearance and a reporting perspective. And it also has to be third-party audited by an accredited organization. And Lloyd's Register is the group that we've been working with, both Jackson and Torres, and just about all of our members as well. And they're an accredited third-party verifier that then looks at our inventory and ensures that that what is being reported out is verifiable. And that's a critical piece as well to any reporting for emissions inventories. And so what we can do, and the beauty of an organization like IWCA is we can put together, we can aggregate all of our winery emissions sources, and we can identify what we call hotspots for where our collective emissions are. So what this donut chart represents is for all 10 of the IWCA members, this is an aggregated look at where our primary sources of greenhouse gas emissions are, which we think is a really good way for the entire industry to start understanding where we focus our efforts to reduce our emissions. And if you look here, you see, as I stated earlier, everything in yellow, those are the scope 3 emissions. Those are the supply chain emissions like wine bottles and purchased grapes and wine and barrels, and the transportation and distribution footprint, as well as employee travel and business travel. So you see that makes up for almost a little over 3/4 of our footprint. And then in green and yellow, green and blue, those are the scopes 1 and 2, or the direct emissions. So that's our on-site fuel use, fertilizer emissions, electricity, kind of driving the primary sources for our winery members. But now we can see where we focus our efforts, and that's of critical importance. It's critically important in terms of managing or measuring to manage. So we know where we need to do the work, and we know what activities that we can now take that will have the highest impact in reducing greenhouse gas emissions globally for the industry. As far as where we are going as a group, I wanted to share a little bit of just high-level detail about what we've accomplished in 2020 in our first full year of organization, and ultimately where we're looking to go in 2021 and beyond. So, the standardization and the continued development of robust greenhouse gas emissions reporting is obviously of most importance for us to make sure that everything's standardized and measured appropriately. One of the challenges, and that we've heard from a lot of folks in the past, particularly small, medium-sized wineries, is that it's really time-consuming and really expensive to do a greenhouse gas emissions inventory and then to get it verified. And so we are working on developing a way in which we can streamline that process and make sure that it's robust enough to meet international standards rigor, but also approachable enough for a small or medium-sized winery to be able to do, so that will not become a barrier for them to be able to enter. And then continuing to work on our emissions hotspots and share best practices through working groups, which we'll describe for you all in a minute. We're also in the process of developing a product seal, which you see here on the screen, that is going to be debuted by Torres on some of their wines, which really helps communicate the importance of climate action in the marketplace. So we look forward to working with some key partners here in the not too distant future to really help bring a voice to what IWCA stands for and what it represents, and also doing trade, media, and consumer outreach to ensure that people understand the importance and the value of the work that we're doing. We're also working to build out the organization by adding some core strategic partnerships with industry partners, potentially with suppliers to the industry who are leading the way in sustainability and emissions reductions, and then also working to establish a science panel so that we are ensuring that we are, incorporating the best and the most relevant science as it relates to emissions and opportunities for mitigations and adaptation moving forward. Because as we've all seen over the last 5 years, as it relates to emissions accounting, the science continues and the accounting continues to evolve and to grow and become more robust and quite frankly more dire. So we need to follow that science. And as we look to the future, we are 10 members strong today at the end of 2020, and we are looking to grow to 50 or more members over the next year to 2 years. So we see this as a great opportunity for anybody who's interested to really take part in our activities and to join us as we work to grow our organization into the future through some of these actions that you see here. One of the key things that I think as we grow is we'll develop more. We're incorporating in the United States as a nonprofit so that we can function independently, which will allow us, I think, more flexibility to grow and to get more members and move forward. And we also see climate advocacy at the local, the regional, and the national and the international level as a key tenet for IWCA as we move forward, really making sure that the wine industry is represented in these climate talks. I'm now going to turn it back to Josep to talk a little bit about one of the working groups that we've established.
Sure, thank you, Julian. As we were previously saying, IWCA is not just a logo, it's not just an association, it is a working group. And Julian is going to talk afterwards about the meetings we are setting every 3 months. But one of the first things we started with was related to these hotspots. Where can we reduce emissions, or in that case, how can we absorb CO2 from the air? This is in fact an opportunity. This is the first working group we've created. It's about carbon farming, very related to regenerative agriculture that is so trendy nowadays. The thing is that by doing the right techniques, we can absorb a lot of CO2 into the soil. So this is a great opportunity, and by sharing the knowledge of each one of the IWCA members, we can come up with different strategies and to find points in common or how different bibliography that we can share. And we have started this working group. It's working, it's up and running. And we expect on one hand to have a best practice to be shared, that will be shared also outside from IWCA. But on the other side, we are also seeking for quantifying the amount of CO2 that is actually sink into the soil, because this is going to allow us to put the winemaking industry, the vineyards, in a position in which we are a tool in order to reduce emissions from the atmosphere by doing the right actions in the field. So that is very, very, very powerful. And we hope that by this collaboratively effort, we can come up with significant results. And in this slide, it's just the example of a little study from Familia Torres that we started this year about different cover crops that we are applying in the soil, and seeing by measuring the carbon content of the soil, how much organic matter is increased in 1 year time and 3 years time. So these studies that we are sharing in between all the different members, everyone has a say, and we are learning from each other. And well, this is our first working group. Julian is going to talk about the next working group we have already started as well.
Yes, and so this relates to the greenhouse gas emissions calculator that I mentioned earlier. And essentially, our challenge is how we lower the barrier to entry for interested wineries so that they can participate in this group from a cost and a resource standpoint, while still being able to have a rigorous third-party verified inventory. And right now, the way greenhouse gas emissions inventory accounting works is generally requires a lot of data collection. You have to go to the various different departments throughout your organization and collect a lot of records that track to your fuel consumption, or supply chain emissions, and all the rest of it. And then you traditionally you work with a third-party consultant who takes all that data, applies region-specific emissions factors to that data, and then calculates your carbon footprint for scopes 1 through 3 using the WRI tools. And that's historically, it's a time-consuming process. It requires a lot of efforts from the organization internally in terms of personnel and data collection. It requires a fair amount of money to work with consultants to get them to to calculate the emissions inventory. And then you also have to have that third party verified, which is costly as well and time consuming. So the whole process over the course, to calculate your emissions footprint generally takes 6 months or longer. So it's a trailing process, not longer. And depending on the size and the complexity of the winery, it's anywhere from 15 to, potentially up to $25,000 per inventory. Sorry, it's looking like this is showing up like this. So we're looking to try to streamline that process. And one of the things we're trying to do is develop our own Excel-based tool that wineries can essentially use on their own, and then work with a third-party support as needed to do the data entry and the data quality analysis. And the goal here is to ultimately follow the ISO guidelines, where we're covering at least 95% of our scopes 1 and 2 emissions, and then about 80% of scope 3 emissions. So really trying to find those hotspots and collect them. And we think that we can cut the cost of this once we've developed the tool for just doing the inventory from $10,000 to $15,000 a year to maybe $2,000 a year. And we think that'll help a lot of smaller wineries join on. And then really quick, I know we're running out of time, but we do meet quarterly virtually. Here's a snapshot of one of our previous meetings, and you can see all the various different members involved. And this is our opportunity to continue talking about and prioritizing our action items in our working groups. So we just had our second meeting on the 17th of November, and our third meeting will more than likely be virtual, given everything that is dealing with globally the pandemic in March of 2021. Giuseppe.
Great. So, well, we invite you to take a look to the IWCA website. This is just a landing page in which you're going to find all these documents that Julian presented. And, well, the information we just explained. There is also a form at the bottom down of the website where you can put your data and get in touch with us. So, well, we invite you to take a look, and this is where you're gonna find us. And to finish with, well, the big question: how to join? Well, IWCA is getting a lot of interest. We are seeing a lot of interest. The more we are growing, the more interest there is. Obviously, when we were just 4 members, the thing was quite stabilized. We didn't have so much inputs, but right now it's moving a lot, and we are more and more known, and this is great. And Julian highlighted the difficulties that small wineries might have. We should also mention that we have partnered with Lloyd's Register, which is an audit firm that we are working with in order to reduce the price of these audits. So we tell them, if there is any winery willing to have the ISO 14064 to become a member of IWCA, you have to make them a discount. So we recommend Lloyd's, and they offer a discount to the wineries that they want to join IWCA. So how to join? Well, you can either send an email to Julian or I, or IWCA@Torres. You can fill in the website form as well. No problem. We're going to receive it. And which are the steps that are going to be that you're going to have to follow in order to be part of IWCA? So first of all, we ask to sign a non-disclosure agreement, just to be sure that the information that goes on one side and the other is confidential. Then we're going to send you the GHG inventory that Julian explained. And this is just intended to see to which extent the inventory of the winery is complete enough. And if it is not complete enough, we're going to ask to complete a few categories that we can also offer some help for that. And we are also going to send you this IWCA standing rules, which is the document in which you're going to find all the details on how IWCA is ruled, all the details about the fees, about well, all the different clauses that might be of your interest and that you have to give back to us signed. Once this is done, then it's the final decision from IWCA. But we can assure you that if you have a greenhouse gas inventory and a serious commitment to be audited by the ISO 14064, we're going to offer you a bit of time to do so, 6 months, at least to have the proof of contract of this audit. We are going to help you through all this process, and you will be either an applicant, or if you fulfill all 4 entry requirements, you can become a member of IWCA and start working all together to decrease the emissions of the wine sector, and to advocate and to raise awareness of this big threat that is above our heads, and that we really need to take action. IWCA is really action driven. That's why there are working groups. That's why we ask for reductions, and we set these science-based targets, hoping to reduce these emissions as fast as possible.
And with that, I think we can open it up to questions. I'm going to stop the screen share. So if there's any questions that anybody wants to send in via email, you can go ahead and email us here, or you can reach out to Wineland, and I'm sure they can get in touch with us as well. But I think, Raquel, maybe we open it up for questions now.
The question, I think it would be, if you are a small winery, you have remarked a lot the small wineries as well, they can join, obviously. Where to start? Obviously, you say how to join, but what will be the first step if I don't know where to start? It means it can be contact JOIDS for an audit and have the ISO. It will be the first step, or who can assess or coach or giving a bit of assessment to these people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, we have a mix of wineries that reach out to us. There are a number of wineries that have already done an audit in some way, shape, or form, and there's a varying range of complexity of greenhouse gas emissions audits. And I think if you've already done an audit, that's great. That's a wonderful first step. And so we would connect with you, and we would look at that audit, and basically we would evaluate the areas where it lines up with our standards, and then provide guidance on how to incorporate additional content. And if you haven't done the audit at this point, and you are concerned about climate change, and you want to take action, and you're worried, and you're concerned about the fate of the world and your children and all the rest of that, which is what keeps me awake at night personally, just send us an email, and we would love to just kind of talk you through the steps. And I think the big thing, the message, my key message is, we're essentially asking people to account for something that we can't actually see, right? Greenhouse gas emissions are not visible in the atmosphere, and it's really hard to wrap your head around this concept because it's such a big concept. But we think that we've developed a really good platform for doing it collectively and following international best standards. And we have the resources internally here within the organization and with our various members to be able to help you get to that process.
I think this is a very, very good message because yes, sometimes you don't know where to start. And the thing is, like, sustainability, as we like to say, is a way, it's a path. You're starting and you never end, but it's very good just to be conscious of where we are and where we would like to be, and just make the path through, make starting to do it, start to walk, And I think
Yes.
if you are, both of you, you are leading this path, is a very good thing for the whole industry. It's very inspiring, and honestly, I'm very happy to listen and to hear that you have this program. Hopefully you will hear from us.
Okay,
I
great.
hope a lot of other wineries they join or they try to search for information in this subject that matters to all of us.
Yes, you were talking about very small companies. We have had we've been reached by very small companies that maybe have 3-4 people working at the winery, and obviously they don't have time to get all these numbers, these figures, and start calculating. So that's why there is this working group in order to create this easy calculator in which at a very small amount of money you will be able to calculate the greenhouse gases. And regarding Lloyd's, I recommend first contact us and we will reach Lloyd's because, well, we have the direct contact. We've been in touch with them for a long time, and it's going to be much easier, and the result is going to be better if we contact them.
We talk about the small wineries, but obviously the ones that they need to take action first, it would be the bigger ones, no? Because it's the ones that they are affecting more to this subject, no? This is for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think on that point too, there's a very distinct business case particularly for larger wineries to start measuring their greenhouse gas emissions and starting to take action. What we have found at Jackson Family Wines, and we produce somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5 million cases every year. That's 9-liter equivalent cases. We found that by measuring our greenhouse gas emissions, we get that, that donut chart. We can see where the footprint hotspots are. And that has then started to inform our management decisions. And what we've seen is by looking and realizing and understanding that glass, for example, the glass bottles that we purchase represent 20% of our company's carbon footprint. But that's a big piece of the footprint. And we had never really thought about that previously. And so we looked at it and we said, well, glass is recyclable and it's a great vessel for using and for packaging fine wine. And we're not necessarily going to move away from glass anytime in the future, but it did provide an opportunity for us to look at the weight of our glass bottles, for example. And so we were able to we cut the weight of our glass bottles by 5% on Kendall Jackson Chardonnay, which is our #1 selling wine. And we cut greenhouse gas emissions between 2 and 3% annually just by this small change. And it was actually able to save us about $1 million a year because, from our glass purchasing. And so if you can, any of those ways for larger organizations where you can see the very clear business case for investing in emissions reductions. Renewable energy is another one. There's a big solar panel array behind me here and a little wind turbine here. And electricity is expensive. And if you can generate your own, then you get free electricity. And so there's without measuring all this stuff, it's really hard to manage against it. But for any organization of any size and scale, there is a very compelling business case to be made for measuring.
Tenemos que ir finalizando, Raquel, así que casi ya conclusiones y despedida. Adelante.
Okay, so thank you very much, both of you, to be here and to introduce you to us to this great initiative. I hope you receive loads and loads of emails and forms after this, and thank you very much again.
Gracias por invitarnos.
Thank you very much, Wayland.
Gracias a los tres, ha sido un placer también y como decías tú, fantásticamente bien, Raquel, es un privilegio tener personas que han iniciado ese camino o que lo están recorriendo y que nos muestran ese caso de éxito. Gracias, los despedimos y vamos con otros casos de éxito que nos van a llevar también hasta otro punto del planeta, otra zona vitivinícola extraordinaria que miramos también con mucha envidia. Nosotros aquí los riojanos por muchas cuestiones, pero se lo cuenta nuestra siguiente invitada que va a conducir este caso de éxito, es Paula Zúñiga. Ella es directora adjunta de Zamora Company División Vinos y un personaje invitado. Es caso de éxito, ejemplo también que merece la pena que conozcamos en esta sesión. Así que todo tuyo. Adelante.
Así es. Bueno, seguiré el resto de la introducción en inglés. So one of the goals of this forum is to share experiences and success stories that inspire us in this path we have ahead of us. The best examples in ecotourism in one of the, of course, the reference region in Darius Winery with us, connecting Napa, Dan DePaulo, who is president of Darius Wineries, and who is kind enough and generous enough to share these secrets of this intriguing example. So Dan, to take us to Napa.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Rioja. It's a pleasure. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, good. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I hope you are hearing me okay. My name is Dan DePaulo. I am the president of Darius Winery, which is a relatively new winery in Napa Valley. We've been around for about 20 years, but we've been, our strategy has been very much about wine tourism, or enotourism, as you mentioned. And I'd like to tell you a few things about why we decided to go in the business direction that we did, and how much success and the challenges that we're finding in doing this. I'm a big proponent, and I really believe in hospitality as a brand marketing strategy, and I think it can work for you very well. So let me start this presentation. All right, where do I go now? Share screen.
Click that one and click share.
Okay. So a quick background on Darius. Darius Winery was founded by Darius and Shapar Khaledi. They are Iranian immigrants to America who came to America for business opportunities and a little more freedom back in the 70s. They've been big collectors of Bordeaux and big fans of Napa wines for many, many years. And they founded the winery in 1997. And it took about 5 or 6 years for them to build the Winery Hospitality Center, which was then opened in 2004. Our primary varietals are Cabernet Sauvignon, but we also make small quantities of Shiraz, Viognier, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, even Chardonnay. Our primary varietal, though, is Cabernet Sauvignon. It represents about 2/3 of our production. And our flagship wine is about $112 a bottle. Our other varietals are anywhere between $55 and $80 a bottle. So we're a super premium winery. Our production now is about 32,000 cases. And most importantly for this conversation today is that we have about 35,000 guests annually, which, as you can imagine, is about 100 people per day. On a busy Saturday, we might have 300 guests. And then on a quiet day like today in the middle of winter, we might only have 20 or 30. But on average, we're seeing and hosting about 50 couples or 100 people every day. What's interesting about having a hospitality and visitor-centric marketing plan is that over the last 15 years, we've really been able to modify and manage our channel mix of our sales so that about 14,000 cases of our production is sold essentially here at the winery every year. And then, of course, we have another 18,000 cases that we sell primarily to restaurants and wine shops in the US and around the world. Since you're all marketers, we all have what I would say contemporary winery challenges if we're small to medium-sized brands, and even this would apply to larger brands as well. But the way I see the global wine industry right now is that there's never been a greater amount of brands. There's never been a higher degree of quality. coming out of every country around the world. There are more brands out there. There are better wines being made. There are better values and higher quantities of wine being produced and sold every year. And that makes it very difficult for a small winery to differentiate itself and stand out. As we all know, or particularly in America, there's a lot of consolidation where large wholesalers are buying smaller wholesalers. There's fewer larger companies, both at the wholesale level, as well as at the retail and restaurant level. And as we know that as company power gets compressed, they have more buying power, and with more brands out chasing each wholesaler or chasing each retailer to make a sale, that really puts smaller wineries at a competitive disadvantage because we don't have the resources perhaps or the money to compete against big brands. And that's really been a big problem here for many, many of the small specialty wineries here in Napa. And of course, I think that the old model of selling wine, where a winery is developing wines and developing their own personal story, and they're telling that story to the wholesaler, who then has to remember the story and then train all their salespeople and teach it, deliver that to the restaurant buyer or the retailer. And then the restaurant buyer has to remember that story and tell the consumer. I just think you get a really diluted and ineffective storytelling when a small winery works so hard to develop wines of style and great quality and all the history of the region. It's just much more effective in my mind to be focusing on talking to the customer directly, to the people who come and visit our property. So overall, we're trying to overcome lower brand loyalty because of the dynamics of the wine industry nowadays. So our goals at Dariush over the last 15 years have really been, as I mentioned, stronger storytelling, stronger brand development, developing direct relationships with collectors, inspiring and taking the time to really tell winemakers, wine buyers what we're about, what makes our wines differently, taking the time to ask them what their interests are. All of that in combination has really increased the brand loyalty for Dariush. We have a lot of repeat customers. We have a lot of repeat visitors. Selling wine directly at the winery is obviously a higher revenue and profitability per case than selling it at FOB to wholesale. And it's really given us an enhanced control and consistency of our sales. And as we know, in the wine business, we can all have, good years and bad years, and whether that's determined by sales execution or a good vintage or a good score, there's a lot of variability in most winery sales plans. And I personally, for working for a small family, one of my greatest contributions to their happiness is to have a very smooth and consistent sales plan. So let's talk about what it takes to generate visitation on the level of a winery like Dariush. Clearly, it starts at the regional level. There would be no way for me to market myself and create or motivate 35,000 people a year to visit Dariush if we were all by ourselves. And with the help of, or with 20 years of our trade organization called the Napa Valley Vintners, promoting Napa Valley not only as a place of high quality wines, but also a great place to visit. The Napa region has really benefited from an increase and a consistent increase of winery tourism, which was about 3.5 million visitors a year in 2019, and a tremendous number of people visiting Napa Valley nowadays. And of course, we have 400 wineries, and it's not just the wineries, it's the world-class restaurants. And like any other wine region, it's our natural beauty, the people behind the wines, the culture and history of our location, just like the history of La Rioja. So I wanted to start by really saying that the regional marketing of your place, of your appellation, is critical for the success of every winery in that area. In Napa Valley, hospitality has been going on for many, many years, decades, of course, but the historical tasting room was really more of a tasting bar. You would walk into a winery, there would be an open bar, maybe 3 or 4 people serving wines. You would go stand at the bar and they would pour you 3 or 4 wines. You get to, taste before you purchase. Perhaps the tasting room attendant is telling you a little bit about the family and the wines, and then they're giving you a pitch to maybe get a discount or free shipping if you sign up for their annual wine club. Well, to me, that was very nice, and it worked fairly well for many wineries for many years. But overall, I find it has lower engagement. It's not necessarily a very memorable experience, and when every winery is simply pouring wine in a tasting bar environment, there's really not a lot of differentiation. So, to me, modern hospitality is really about the emergence of the experience economy. As we all know, well, I'll just say that in America, wine consumers and many consumers are really more interested in an experience than just a thing. When they don't just want to buy a bottle of wine, they want to go visit and experience the people behind it. They want to feel like they belong to a small producer or associate themselves with a small brand with a particular position. So we've really designed our visitor experiences to be to satisfy that demand for a unique experience. And so our visitor strategies have really been designed around developing longer visits, having more time with the customer one-on-one, making those experiences higher memorability, more engagement, things that they can take pictures of and share with others. That's really the strategy that we're after. The experiences that we've done here and that I recommend any other winery do is to really align your winery strengths along with consumer interests. And that can be, if your family or if your winery has a particular culinary strength, or maybe there's a regional element and you want to have cooking or lunch or dinner experiences or food and wine pairing experiences, that's obviously very popular. Some people are doing blending seminars. We have actually a wine historian and 3 wine educators on staff who can train not only wine enthusiasts, but also train sommeliers and visitors from the trade. And then I think we can also be thinking beyond just wine when it comes to enhancing and encouraging visitation to our wineries and our wine regions. Of course, the concept of agriturismo and staying at a winery, in Italy is an opportunity for all of us, I believe. There's a lifestyle or spa element that many wineries have adopted. I can't really do that in Napa Valley because of our laws. So I can't host people to spend the night. I can't be a hotel, and I can't be a restaurant. Although we can serve food as part of a tasting experience. We have an olive oil seminar with an Italian lady who is actually a certified sommelier in wine, chocolate, and olive oil from Italy. And as I mentioned, we also have a history of wine luncheon that lasts about 2 hours with a wine historian who used to work for Robert Mondavi for 20 years. So all of these ideas or concepts can be adapted to a winery or wine region to make the reasons, to increase the reasons and the desirability of visiting a place like La Rioja. as I mentioned before, the benefits to Dariush, what we're pursuing is more effective and meaningful brand stories to really be creating memories that people can take home, share, post, obviously on Instagram or social media. More time and is really the key to developing stronger client relationships, and even between our host and a particular guest. We've customized our visitor experiences to be specific to collector interests with library wines or different cellar selections. We have wine education for sommeliers and some very more technical tastings. And then, of course, we can do different types of events or experiences for a journalist based on their interest in a story. Our goals are long-term loyalty and repeat purchase. It's much easier, as we all know, to maintain a relationship and continue a sale year to year than it is to go out and find brand new customers every single year. And we've really managed to do that quite well. Our club, as you'll see later, is our wine club represents about 40% of our annual sales. And that's an annual membership that people are continuing to buy a certain number of wines that they like and select, and we send those out on their release. So, and then lastly, of course, if we do a good job in the modern world, people really like to not only experience unique wine tasting experiences, but they're really looking forward to sharing the foods or the people or the place on social media. And that's a great and tremendous opportunity for every winery. We just need to think about what are the things that we can give the client besides just a glass of wine to share with others. So I really like the concept of this model or wine tourism because it's really given us or given me more control over my destiny. Historically, or maybe you can all relate to this, but after working so hard to make our wines and to develop our brands and to develop our vineyards and to produce great wines every year, I don't want to give my whole sales plan, the reliability of my sales plan, to whether or not I get a good score or not from a wine publication. So there's just too much, like I said, variability, the up and down, the chance of getting an 88 versus a 98. I really don't want my sales plan driven by wine scores. So taking control of that and really telling my story directly to the customer is a way that I can do that. We're not spending money on advertising and print ads in major publications. Those might have broad reach, but a picture of the winery or a picture of my brand or whatever I am choosing to advertise really has about 1 second of engagement. And if 100,000 people see that, that's great. But I think 5 minutes later, they're not really remembering my brand, or they're not necessarily motivated to buy my wine. And so again, I prefer to market myself directly with my customer. And the visit is really just the beginning of a long-term relationship. I firmly believe that if we want customers to come back, if we want them to buy a case of wine every year, we don't just host them and say thank you very much when they purchase some wine and go home. We're sending them a thank you note. It seems very, very simple, but it's extremely effective when you are sending 50 or 100 thank you notes to your guests every day, and my staff really does that as much as possible. That connection or that ability to follow up after we send them their case of wine, to call them and be in direct connection and make sure that our customer service has been excellent, that they're enjoying their wines. All of this begins to build a more multifaceted relationship with the customer and has really increased our sales and maintained our sales year to year. Obviously, it took us a long time to get to 35,000 visitors a year. But now, with 100 people a day visiting, our sales can be upwards of $20,000 a day here at the winery. That's a substantial number for us. that's even beyond what I was thinking we could do 15 years ago when we started this endeavor. But having a $20,000 cash flow a day from our visitation at the winery is obviously a tremendous benefit. And then lastly, not to be overlooked, but the long-term brand awareness of having, 35,000 visitors a year, 350,000 visitors to Dariush over a 10-year period. All of those people spent an hour or two on a meaningful, memorable experience at the winery. Those are millions of stories, millions of referrals, millions of social media posts when those are multiplied and with modern technology. And then lastly, just to share, I mentioned earlier that Dariush is 32,000 cases in production. Most of that is Cabernet Sauvignon. When I started in this business 25 years ago, most small family wineries were 80 or 90% of their sales were wholesale, which is obviously at a reduced price, not full retail price. Well, Dariush right now, after focusing on this strategy and executing for the last 15 years, we receive about 30% of our sales from the winery, and then follow up with phone or email, and then we also do almost $2 million in business a year on our website, which has been a tremendous success. Another 40% of our sales are also direct. That's through our club, which we call a first offering membership. That's an annual reservation. We have 12,000 members that are signed up. I think it represents approximately 8,000 cases in total. That's been terrific, and that's been the strongest aspect of our business this year when there's so much challenge to visitation. And then, of course, we have about 30% of our sales are via wholesale to restaurants and export and wine shops around the world. So anyhow, thank you very much, La Rioja. I hope this presentation, while quick, has been informative. I'm happy to take any questions and talk about any topic in more detail.
Thank you, Dan. Yours has been a very clear, transparent presentation, and not from the theoretical point of view, but from the ideal model of congratulate you. Let me pass to some questions if we have time, and now cannot help touching the topic of the COVID-19 that affected you, in terms of in the capacity and the operations with the visitors.
Well, it's definitely been the toughest year we've ever we would have never imagined. If you asked me a year ago, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? This is it. Our model is highly dependent on visitation every year. Our traffic, we were closed for 100 days, about 3 months in the spring, and Napa, I think in the next week, is going to go back into a closure of, all restaurants and wineries will not be able to host any guests. So our traffic is down 50%, and our sales at the winery are down not 50%, but it's really been a big challenge, and I would have never imagined that something of this scale could happen to us. The best aspect of it is that the club business and our direct business, our website, as I mentioned, those have both been very, very strong aspects of our business. The club has not shrunk. That's been maintained. And our web sales have practically been up about 50%. And our phone and email campaigns to reach our customers has been a very effective way of making up a lot of revenue that has been lost at the winery. And then lastly, most of my wholesale business is to restaurants, which I strongly believe that that's the right place for our brand. And of course, with all the restaurants being closed, that business is off about 25% this year. So it's been a really tough year.
Yeah, well, one can imagine that, of course, the direct sales have been affected, but there's fortunately another channel, which is the online sales. And talking about the online or the digital, what do you think the experiences? I've seen on your you offer virtual tasting, and you foresee the progress of that experiences?
Yeah, so a lot of wineries are approaching virtual tastings in different ways. At Darioush, we simply made the decision that we were going to try as much as possible to deliver the type of experience that we do at the winery online to our customers. So, which means that, you know, we wanted to have this be an interactive small group where we're hosting in this room here. This is one of our tasting lounges at the winery, where we're hosting people one-on-one or maybe 2 or 3 couples at a time in a very personal manner. That's required us to do a lot of virtual tastings. That's required us to do a lot of outreach through email and calling and even various other connections to the customer to tell them about the type of experiences that we can offer them. But it's been very effective because, you know, there's demand for it. We found that customers are really interested, if they can't travel to Napa, to at least have that connection. You know, maybe I think modern people nowadays are, you know, we're just not used to being stuck at home. And so there's been a lot of satisfaction with us approaching it from a, you know, a very personal one-on-one level. A lot of wineries in Napa, however, are doing this much differently. There are wineries that are having great success with, you know, Instagram Live or Facebook Live, which is more, you know, it's less personal, where they're like this, they're giving a presentation or a lecture or putting on some sort of tasting that anybody can really sign into. Some wineries are requiring people to buy a few bottles of wine in advance in order to get invited to the event. That's a great way of developing sales. Other people are, you know, out telling stories or creating, you know, really content and trying to drive sales or drive more brand awareness by doing that. So I know of many wineries that are hosting, you know, Facebook Live events for 500 or 1,000 people based on how they're promoting themselves. I personally, and we have really enjoyed speaking to our guests one-on-one or in small groups.
Unfortunately, we are running behind schedule, so we don't have. But I would like to thank you very much to attend this Wineland, the forum.
Thank you. Thank you. I wish you and everyone who's watching today a very Merry Christmas. May you be safe. May you continue to succeed. We'll all get through this. And I actually have a plan to visit Rioja in Spain in August, and I'm very much looking forward to that. So thank you and enjoy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bueno, qué bien. Paula, no sé si ya despedirte en inglés, en castellano. Qué envidia, estos modelos en Estados Unidos que funcionan tan bien. Estaba echando yo un vistazo a su propia página web y a su bodega. Es como un templo clásico. Se mete uno ahí en esa historia, eso que insistía él, ¿no? De contar una experiencia y de hacer vivir al cliente eso que indudablemente, como en persona, no hay nada, a pesar de las pantallas. Gracias también por acompañarnos en esta ponencia. lo ha dicho él, feliz Navidad para todos vosotros también y que el 21 sea muy bueno también para vuestra corporación.
Gracias.
Despedimos ya a Paula y vamos con el siguiente... perdón, eso que nos dicen desde realización, que antes de dar paso al cierre, al broche de la jornada de hoy, les vamos a compartir un contenido audiovisual que tenemos ya listo y preparado, así que adelante.
Hace 6 meses, el mundo se paró en seco a causa de una pandemia mundial. Diario La Rioja siguió informando a pie de calle para contar a los riojanos lo que estaba sucediendo en el exterior. Información veraz, contrastada y con rigor, porque estar bien informado es un bien de primera necesidad. Ya hemos vuelto a nuestras calles, nos hemos reencontrado con nuestras familias y amigos, hemos vuelto a la actividad. Las empresas y comercios son el motor de nuestra ciudad y nuestros pueblos. Diario La Rioja quiere ayudarles a llegar a sus clientes en esta nueva etapa, porque es el periódico más leído en La Rioja con 69.000 lectores diarios y el medio líder en Internet con 97.326 lectores, llegando a través de los dos soportes a 166.326 lectores diferentes al día, el 52% de la población de La Rioja, con un perfil muy atractivo para los anunciantes riojanos. Además, pueden anunciarse en diferentes formatos y plataformas. Diario La Rioja, información con valor, cerca de ti.
Bueno, pues ya estamos con todos ustedes de regreso y poniendo el broche, el punto final casi a esta primera sesión, a esta primera jornada que ha sido intensa, que nos ha venido reuniendo a muchos aquí presencialmente, a la gran mayoría al otro lado de sus horas. Decenas y decenas de personas, no solo en La Rioja, sino lo que más nos gusta también, fuera de nuestra comunidad. Y como estamos ya casi poniendo el punto final, vamos a hacerlo de una forma relajada, de la mejor manera posible, a esta sesión, que es una charla entre amigos, entre buenos amigos, que vamos...
Hola, ¿se oye?
Sí, hola. Sí, sí.
Ahora de japonés. En Marbella no va a tener si algún día tuviera algún problema. A nivel pues para colegios. Este año el menos relación tengo con los colegios locales. Esta noche con la Policía Nacional, hola. ¿Me oyes? Vértigo, el tema comercial que está mal. Vértigo, ¿sí? Parte de arriba, voy a hablar de la parte de arriba, la terraza esa. Luego se llama Quick y luego se llama el local que era de mi padre.
Tenemos un poco de descontrol. Vamos a hacer una prueba. Vamos atentos todos. Aquí, miradme a mí. Vamos a ver. ¿Oyes?
Yo te oigo.
Sí. Está en la avenida.
Hola, buenas tardes.
A ver. Me agrada ver a gente que no conoce una nueva.
Gabriel Lacobucci, ¿tú nos escuchas? ¿Nos ves bien?
Sí, te escucho.
Gabriel también, jefe. La dificultad la tenemos con Andrés, con el terminal que él... Sí, te escuchamos, Andrés, pero con una señal entremezclada de alguna clase de fuente de audio que también nos estás enviando, no sé si de tu terminal, tu ordenador o por ahí. Ahora no te escuchamos. Bueno, mientras tanto, yo creo que mientras arreglamos... A ver, vamos a ir...
Hola, ¿nos oís ahora? Hola, buenas tardes.
Andrés, ahora sí.
Ahora sí. Sí. Espera, ahora te paso con Andrés, ¿vale? Un segundo. ¿Vale? Paso con Andrés.
Por aquí.
Hola.
Compañeros.
Hola.
A ver si...
Sí, ahora, ¿qué tal?
Ahora, Andrés, aunque a pesar de todo se nos cuela un poquito de tu sonido, no sé si puedes bajar algo el volumen. Entiendo que estarás con un ordenador, con una tablet, si puedes bajar un pelín, ¿eh? El volumen del local.
Claro, sí. A ver, ahora.
Estás cortando, ¿eh? Gabriele también. Estáis cortando bien. A ver.
Perdona, Miguel, dile a Psicólogo que venga. ¿Ahora?
¿Quién me ha dicho?
¿Ahora qué tal estáis? ¿Ahora me escucháis?
Sí, se oye, pero
escuchamos.
A Psicólogo. Daniel. Sí, ahora.
Venga, vamos adelante. Vamos así, con estas reflexiones ayer, así que con buenos amigos, a ver si conseguimos ya arrancar esta parte final de la sesión de hoy.
Escucha, pero es que había un poquito de eco.
Andrés, no te preocupes, venga, tiramos así, vamos así adelante y cuando queráis, venga, adelante.
Vale, pues yo creo que tengo yo que hacer las veces de moderador. Buenas tardes. Un placer estar en Wildland, en este encuentro privilegiado en estos momentos raros que de manera virtual se está organizando para acercarnos al statu quo, al momento actual del mundo del vino, el Club de Marketing de La Rioja, que ha organizado pues, estos encuentros en el MEN. Y para mí es un honor tener que compartir unos minutos raros, poco presenciales, pero intensos con dos primeros espadas. Porque claro, hablar de chef español en La Rioja pues es prácticamente hablar de una leyenda, un sommelier, un agitador del vino, un conocedor del mundo del vino como él, que bueno, de alguna manera ha venido a marcar unas pautas importantes en esta cuestión. Y antes que nada, y luego hablaremos con Gabriel, me gustaría, querido chefe, un primer punto, un punto de partida sobre cuál es la función del sommelier en estos tiempos de crisis. ¿Ha cambiado algo el servicio del vino? ¿Ha cambiado algo el espectáculo del vino? ¿El vino en la mesa? ¿Cómo lo ves, jefe?
Bueno, buenas tardes, Andrés, y un honor estar aquí formando parte de este congreso y este foro tan importante, ¿no? Ha cambiado, a todos nos ha dejado en nuestro sitio. Esto es increíble lo que está pasando. Estamos asistiendo a un momento muy especial, muy difícil, nadie lo esperaba. Y lógicamente nuestra relación con la bodega, con el vino, con el estocaje, y lo movilizado que nosotros tenemos en estos momentos es la relación muy directa con esto, ¿no? Evidentemente el parón está siendo largo y el estocaje está ahí, los vinos están, digamos que madurando, siguen madurando, pero es cierto que estamos reflexionando mucho sobre lo que tenemos que hacer y cómo lo vamos a hacer en el futuro.
Buenas tardes, hola a todos. Bueno, claramente la situación me ha cambiado mucho también en lo que es mi práctica de sommelier. Como consecuencia del hecho, más que nada, de que ha cambiado el tipo de público al que nos dirigimos. Pero esto depende también de cada situación. No me he dado cuenta que en esta crisis tiene muchas variables y hablar de hostelería y de turismo significa hablar de situaciones muy diferenciadas. Yo conozco la situación de Chefe, por ejemplo, y la mía es muy distinta. Y lo que nos ha pasado a nosotros es que
venga Dani otra vez.
Ha cambiado totalmente el tipo de público al que nos dirigimos. Y por lo tanto, de consecuencia, ha cambiado el tipo de propuesta que yo como sommelier tengo que hacer. No tanto las prácticas, sino el contenido de lo que es nuestra propuesta gastronómica y de vino.
No te oímos, sí. Andrés. Sí.
Hola.
Sí.
No se escucha.
No te escuchamos, Andrés.
¿Me escucháis ahora?
Sí.
Sí, Gabriela Cauchi, tú eres un viajero del vino. Eres alguien que ha examinado cuál es el servicio y el interés del vino en varios continentes, ¿no? Estuviste en Australia, has estado en Italia, en España, no sé si me explico, Gabriel. ¿Y cuál es el pulso? ¿Es diferente según los continentes? ¿Hay un mismo termómetro para hablar del servicio del vino y del interés del vino? ¿Da igual en los países o hay algunas peculiaridades?
No me siento como para hacer una generalización en lo que respecta al país, ¿no? en el que se opera. Sin embargo, he tenido claramente maneras de hacer mi trabajo muy diferentes. Pero eso depende de cada situación y de las personas a las que te encuentras y lo que te enseñan. Por ejemplo, ahora estoy muy enfocado en un tema de maridaje, completamente enfocado en la parte aromática del vino y de las comidas, que es un abordaje bastante diferente a lo que utilizaba cuando trabajaba con chef, por ejemplo. Y eso no creo que dependa de la cultura del lugar. Sin embargo, tendrá alguna importancia, pero del lugar específico y de la escuela de pensamiento de cada lugar, de cada sitio.
Y tú, jefe, evidentemente desde el portal...
Andrés.
Sí, no, decía jefe, que tenemos problemas de conexión con iniciar vídeo. Decía jefe que tú, desde tu posición privilegiada, el portal, el Echaurren, te sientes a veces un poco llanero solitario, un poco interlocutor en el vacío, que tienes el punto de conexión con los bodegueros, pero te sientes que estás a la vanguardia, que a veces el cliente no te sigue, que estáis hablando en el desierto, que tenéis que hacer demasiada labor de pedagogía, y más en estos tiempos donde la gente a veces tiene una posición, una reacción conservadora. En tiempos de crisis, la gente no hace mudanzas, ni está por hacer grandes experimentos.
Bueno, perdóname, es que he entendido muy poco, hay mucho eco.
Sí, te contesto yo si quieres, Andrés.
Sí.
Verdaderamente llevamos muchos años trabajando la carta de vinos y viendo un poquito la trayectoria del cliente y del consumidor en el panorama, ¿no? de la gastronomía, en nuestra casa también. Algo extrapolable a las casas de todos los compañeros que trabajan aquí en Rioja. Vemos que el consumidor está aprendiendo cada vez más, está demandando cada vez más otro tipo de vinos, otro tipo de... viene con otras ideas y nosotros nos estamos adaptando claramente, aparte de ir incorporando a nuestras cartas aquellos vinos que consideramos que son importantísimos y que hay que tener, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, yo creo que es una lucha no de solitarios, todo lo contrario. Creo que hay una colaboración y una participación maravillosa con el cliente que cada vez está mejor documentado y mejor y que tiene mucho más interés en el vino. Y eso nos está permitiendo trabajar nuevos formatos también en nuestras cartas de vinos, ¿no? Sí es cierto que ahora nos vamos a ver obligados por necesidad a hacer una carta de vinos que recoja las propuestas que los clientes, que el nuevo consumidor quiere, lógicamente más reducidas. Esas cartas de vinos de ahora van a ser un poquito más reducidas. Vamos a trabajar sin duda, y ya lo estábamos haciendo, el servicio de vino por copas. Cada vez hay más clientes que no quieren beberse una botella y quieren probar 3 vinos diferentes en una comida del restaurante tradicional, con cocina tradicional nuestra del Echaurren. Además, lógicamente, el nuevo formato de medias botellas, etcétera, todo esto está siempre abierto a lo que el cliente demande y yo creo que en ese sentido hemos aprendido mucho, ¿no? Y a escuchar, sobre todo.
Hemos tenido que interrumpir la conexión con Andrés porque no nos daba ni la calidad de sonido ni la facilidad tampoco para los espectadores que están siguiendo con mucha atención vuestra charla. Así que continuamos la conversación desde este punto de vista. Gabriel, también ¿Estás viendo también esa realidad que comenta Chefe, ¿no? Lo de clientes que quieren probar más de un vino, que son curiosos, que no les interesa la experiencia de acabarse una botella de una misma bodega? ¿Cuál es tu sensación en ese cambio, que no sé si también lo veis allí en vuestra casa en Venecia? Más
Seguramente. Me quería conectar a lo que decía Chefe, porque nosotros en esa situación hemos visto lo importante que es fortalecer un público local, un público que pertenece a esta situación geográfica. Porque nos hemos dado cuenta que sin querer, de alguna forma, cuando esta parte del público no la dejas de alguna forma entrar en tu restaurante, en tu hotel, acaba haciendo que la clientela de afuera manda en algún sentido, ¿no? Este año nos hemos visto obligados a hacer las cosas de otra forma y hemos descubierto que este público que tenemos aquí está mucho más dispuesto a aceptar innovaciones en las propuestas, que van más o menos en el sentido que ha subrayado Chefe, más maridajes y más originales, además enfocados de alguna forma en el concepto de sostenibilidad, con lo cual con una elección de vinos hechos con prácticas sostenibles, por supuesto, cosa que está entrando en la percepción general como una cosa bastante normal. Y más que esto, también bebidas, y este es el proyecto que tenemos para el año que viene, que nosotros mismos producimos. Fermentaciones de diversos tipos, incluyendo kombuchas, sakés y estas cosas. Queremos en este sentido transformar nuestra propuesta en un sentido sostenible, como la cocina además. Y el hecho de tener unos clientes de aquí nos da más fuerza para proponer esto a los visitantes también.
Qué bueno, Chefe. Yo no sé si habéis considerado dar ese paso. Sería casi lo último que os...
Bueno, estamos en ello, De hecho, tengo un hijo cocinero, Gonzalo, que se ha pasado todo el confinamiento en Tokio. Hemos estado trabajando con él mucho también la kombucha y otras bebidas. Él ha hecho su proyecto de fin de carrera sobre la sostenibilidad y la huella de carbono en el traslado de los vinos, del vino hacia, en este caso, Japón. Pero bueno, esa sensibilidad sobre lo que está ocurriendo y esa huella de carbono nos parece interesantísima. Llevamos ya varios años haciendo varias bebidas que incorporamos a nuestro menú de degustación y que son bebidas que de alguna manera también quieren hacer un guiño al paisaje, bebidas sin alcohol que sirven para hacer una entrada en el restaurante en la primera parte del tapeo. Francis en ese sentido sí que está desarrollando cositas y las estamos probando y nos está gustando. Evidentemente al cliente hay que darle siempre placer y que disfrute con lo que le estamos proponiendo. Y lo más bonito es eso, que cada vez hay más ganas de aceptarnos y de comprender un poco que las propuestas son interesantes. Por supuesto también desde el sentido de que hay vinos mucho más, digamos que a la hora de organizar nuestras próximas cartas de vinos, seguramente vamos a hacer unas cartas de vinos mucho más originales, sin dejar de lado nunca los clásicos, pero tenemos una Rioja tan amplia y tan extensa y tan rica, con pequeños viticultores que han mirado al paisaje y han convertido el paisaje en discurso. Y para nosotros eso es importantísimo también. Entonces, yo creo que estamos transmitiendo bien, hay mucha pureza en los vinos que tenemos y la gente se está sorprendiendo. Y lo más bonito, es que la gente ya quiere, el consumidor ya quiere descubrir, y eso es, hay que agarrarse a eso, porque sabemos que esa es un arma que podemos y la vamos a seguir utilizando, ¿no?
Pregunta para los dos, para Gabriel y para Chefe. Habláis de innovación, de originalidad. ¿Hasta dónde? ¿Cuál es el límite, Gabriel, de la originalidad en vuestro mundo, en el de la sumillería, en el de los vinos? ¿Hasta dónde puede inventar uno? ¿Cuál es el límite? ¿Cuál es la barrera? Porque también hay un tipo de cliente seguramente que no va a dejar nunca de acudir a vuestras casas, que quiere productos clásicos, consolidados, va a buscar sensaciones que ya conoce y que le transportan a recuerdos y a sabores y a paisajes. ¿Cuál es el límite de la creatividad en el mundo del vino desde vuestra humilde opinión? Gabriel.
Yo mismo no soy una persona que empuja siempre para la originalidad, y digo que es un compromiso constante entre lo que es una idea nueva y la aceptación que tiene de inmediato, porque no se puede prescindir de esta aceptación en cómo están las cosas en nuestros oficios, en nuestro oficio ahora. Y lo que es la realidad de la hostelería es que el público de alguna forma tiene que mandar, y es justo que sea así. Con lo cual, la originalidad son ideas nuevas, propuestas poco a poco, de forma muy democrática, en mi opinión, en esta situación. Y claro, como hay una propuesta original, tanto hay la curiosidad por parte de muchos clientes, pero como dices tú, también hay otra parte del público que no tiene tanto esta aptitud. Y otra cosa para mí que hay que añadir es que, aparte de la curiosidad por parte del cliente, en estos tiempos hace falta inteligencia también, y es una cosa de la que yo hablo muy a menudo. Como consumidores, incluso que sea en un contexto de hostelería de lujo, tenemos que un poco empezar a incluir un cierto concepto de austeridad, ¿no? Que nos lleve a nuevos tiempos, que se puede traducir porque cuando hablamos de esto, no hay cierta goliardía, el espíritu de convivialidad que nos llevan, y está bastante aceptado que una pareja se pueda sentar a una mesa y beberse incluso 3 botellas de vino. Este también es un tipo de mentalidad que tenemos que cambiar, porque está muy aceptado todavía.
Si la sobremesa es larga, sí que...
No, me pasa a menudo.
Esos son de los nuestros, Gabriele.
Claro. Originalidad y tradición, ¿no? El equilibrio.
Eso es lo que hablo.
Claro que sí. Sí, es cierto que bueno, es cierto que estamos en momentos que la austeridad se impone, pero las demandas de nuestros clientes, en este caso, y está muy bien señalado, no tenemos clientes extranjeros. Hace poco era muy habitual que, sobre todo los extranjeros que estaban ya visitando esta Rioja excelente, llegaran con sus botellas de vino y te pidieran también ese formato, ¿no? Esta historia que de escorches, ¿no? Algo que tú rápidamente atiendes positivamente, ¿no? A descorcharlo, a servirlo con las mejores copas posibles, etc. Esa figura no la tenemos ahora. Y sin embargo, el público nacional sí que viene y utiliza otra herramienta que se creó en la crisis anterior, que era el placer continúa en casa, y era esa bolsita takeaway para llevarte la mitad de la botella que no te has bebido a tu casa. O sea que también por ahí hay fórmulas para que nuestro cliente nacional te diga, esto me lo voy a cenar luego en casa con mi mujer, me ha sabido a gloria, qué bien estado, y es un placer, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, hay muchas maneras de satisfacción. Y ahora, por supuesto, qué agradecidos estamos, y lo quiero decir aquí directamente a este cliente riojano se ha portado tan bien en este confinamiento que en cuanto le han dejado salir, nos ha visitado tanto a Azcaray como a todos los pueblos de Rioja.
Decía yo que en sajón eso de llevarse el takeaway, el vino sobrante a casa, se veía sin ningún tipo de complejo, cosa que en otras culturas como las nuestras mediterráneas, no sé por qué, daba un poco de vergüenza, ¿no? Llevarse el vino a casa. Ha ido cambiando esa mentalidad. Nos quedan pocos minutos, pero vosotros tenéis una extraordinaria relación con el cliente que va a vuestras casas a disfrutar, pero también con el productor de vino, que quiere que se venda su vino en la mesa, que el bodeguero que os dice qué tengo que hacer para que se venda más vino en tu casa, en tu restaurante. ¿Qué estáis notando también de esa otra parte, Gabriel, del productor, del bodeguero? ¿Qué consejo le daríais para que su vino se venda un poquito más de lo que se vende?
Bueno, esto también es un tema que hay que diferenciar mucho, porque yo me acuerdo en La Rioja, la relación con el productor es primaria, es fundamental, es algo imprescindible en un hotel como el Echauren. En Venecia esto es un poco más difícil y es normal que sea así. Aquí el papel más importante lo tienen nuestros intermediarios. Tenemos una parte que nos conecta a los productores. Y esto porque Venecia es una isla, no hay agricultura aquí cerca. Tiene casi más restaurantes que personas que viven aquí, con lo cual surge una manera un poco diferente de hacer las cosas y de abastecerse también en el vino, en lo que respecta al vino. Con lo cual, cada vez más haciendo mi trabajo, yo me encuentro en una situación en la que tengo que dedicar mucha atención a la elección de los intermediarios que yo quiero y crear una relación de confianza que de alguna forma cada restaurante tenga su intermediario, porque saben lo que queremos y van en busca de aquello ellos mismos. Y así luego nosotros no tenemos que preocuparnos que lo que nos traigan de nuevo no pertenezca a la tipología de vinos que buscamos.
Claro.
No sé si...
Sí, perfecto. Esa confianza, esa relación tiene que ser muy estrecha con esos intermediarios para que ellos entiendan lo que vosotros buscáis y a su vez comprendáis también lo que son capaces de daros, ¿no? Tiene que haber mucha confianza con ellos.
Confianza y afinidad de gusto también.
Totalmente de acuerdo, ¿eh? Totalmente de acuerdo, Gabriele. Además, es algo que ahora mismo nos exige reflexionar. Esas alianzas con esos intermediarios que para mí son los distribuidores con los que tú estableces ya unas relaciones. Has conocido muchas cosas a través de ellos y hay que tener una relación sincera y honrada y buena. Y las alianzas vienen desde el punto de vista, porque ahora ir de la mano, lo hemos dicho otras veces, ir de la mano significa que en estos momentos un 100 puntos Parker, mejor vino del mundo, que acaba de ser nombrado ayer o antes de ayer, un vino riojano que nos tiene que llenar de orgullo, pues es un vino que tú puedes tener en tu carta y sin embargo en estos momentos la distribución y la propiedad pueden hacer un esfuerzo para que el vino figure en carta y hacer luego los pagos pertinentes. Son ideas. Al mismo tiempo, hay otros viticultores y otros distribuidores que tienen otros portfolios interesantísimos de otra Rioja que hay que descubrir, con los que lógicamente no puedes con todos, pero vas conociendo cada vez más y esa relación con el distribuidor y con el viticultor que con pocas hectáreas de viñedo hacen vinos extraordinarios, la verdad que establecer esos vínculos es fundamental y hay que intentar primero tener lo que te gusta, por supuesto, te tiene que gustar a ti para vender, ¿no? Pero pero bueno, la relación en La Rioja especialmente es muy directa. No es como allí, que es lo que tú dices, pero en La Rioja nosotros tenemos una relación, yo creo que maravillosa con la gente que vamos conociendo. Y tú ya la has conocido, la verdad.
Así es. Vamos avanzando porque no tenemos ya mucho más tiempo, pero sí que nos apetece siempre dar una pincelada, no anecdótica, sino de realidad de la que vosotros vivís cada día. Chefe no sé si nos va a responder porque tiene tantos compromisos y es tan fácil enfadar a muchos y solo contentar, pero bueno, Gabriel, el último vino que has bebido hoy, en la comida, por la tarde, ¿cuál has descorchado, cuál has disfrutado o cuál has servido en el día de hoy? El último que tú recuerdes y digas, mira, hoy he abierto este.
Pues he abierto una sidra, en realidad.
Muy bien. Fantástico. No sé si en Italia se consume sidra en estas fechas. En España todavía sigue siendo una tradición, en algunos puntos de... Sí.
No, es una sidra francesa, de las que se embotellan.
Fantástico. Pues mira, una sidra.
De todas las temporadas. Es que últimamente intento beber bebidas con menos alcohol. 6-7%. Lo disfruto un poco más en realidad.
El nuevo consumidor.
Cerveza fresco. Sí.
Sí, es un debate interesante que seguro que abordamos en próximas ediciones porque sí que hay consumidores que buscan una carga alcohólica no tan alta como estamos dando en Rioja en los últimos años. Es un debate interesante.
Cada vez más baja.
Está cambiando y hay mucha más frescura y la verdad es que los vinos que se están haciendo ahora no saturan el paladar, la verdad que hay cosas maravillosas. Podemos presumir mucho.
El último que has descorchado tú, has abierto, a ver qué nos
Pues
dice.
mira, te voy a decir, Ezequiel García fue una persona extraordinaria al que le quisimos mucho y con mi padre el otro día, tiene 94 años, he descorchado una botella del 70 que nos regaló la bodega Olarra, yo muy agradecido y a mi padre le encantó y yo lo disfruté mucho y nos bebimos unas copas de vino y disfrutamos un montón. O sea que fíjate, una Rioja clásica de la que podemos presumir siempre, ¿no?
Que es mucho más que un vino. En este caso, como siempre ocurre con este extraordinario, es todo lo que hay alrededor de historia, de recuerdos, de sensaciones. Nos despedimos y, por cierto, nos manda Andrés Sánchez Magro disculpas de su parte porque las condiciones técnicas no le han permitido realizar una buena conexión, pero os manda un abrazo fortísimo a los dos. Gabriel, gracias. A ver,
muy bien.
Vamos para allí, para Venecia, y que la cosa mejore en este 2020 que acaba, en el 21, tan duro que hemos padecido en España y también en Italia. Ojalá que el próximo año sea bueno. Un abrazo fuerte.
Que sigamos juntos.
Que mejore, voy para allá a beber unos Riojas.
Es tu casa.
Me verás por ahí.
Gracias, Gabriel Chefe. Un placer que sigáis trabajando con el mismo espíritu, pasión y entrega que habéis hecho cuando os han dejado y cuando no, que también habéis estado sin parar de darle a la cabeza. Un abrazo fuerte.
Muchas gracias. Saludos a todos.
Gracias.
Y nosotros nos despedimos ya agradeciendo también a toda esa gente que ha estado al otro lado conectada, siguiendo, mandando preguntas, que veía una ponencia, que la que le interesaba se conectaba. Es desde luego muy emocionante saber que en estas circunstancias tan difíciles, un 2020 en el que no podemos juntarnos en persona, estar en un escenario, reunirnos, abrazarnos, vernos, tener público, brindar o hacer una cata, saber que este foro se celebra, ha comenzado hoy, forma virtual, continúa mañana también en este mismo formato. No se lo pierdan porque mañana tenemos ponencias, paneles, charlas y experiencias sensacionales para compartir con todos ustedes. Adiós.
En Ibercaja somos el banco del vamos a por otro día. Del vamos a casa, a nuestra casa. Del vamos a por otra, que lo que necesita es alguien con quien jugar. Y del vamos a cambiar el mundo. En Ibercaja vamos con los que no tienen un negocio, tienen una vida. Con los que miran al futuro siempre. Y con el equipo de Tercero B, que no ha ganado ningún partido, pero no deja de intentarlo. En Ibercaja somos el banco del vamos contigo, en tus planes, en tus ideas y en tu vida. Bienvenido a Ibercaja, el banco del vamos.